Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen expects OP to pay for her vacation. Am I the jerk for not letting my girlfriend use shared funds for a vacation? My girlfriend, 27 female, and I, 32 male, have been together for 2 years now. We moved into an apartment together about 2 months ago. We both like to travel, so we set up a shared account that we both contribute to, which we decided we would use exclusively for travel. When we set up the account, I was under the assumption that this travel fund would be used for trips we took together. It never even crossed my mind that it would be used for solo trips, but apparently my girlfriend thought otherwise. She's currently planning a girls' trip with some of her friends. She was talking to me about the cost and said that there is just about enough in the travel fund for her entire trip. When we first set up the fund, we both individually deposited a fair large sum of money to get the account started. I've set up direct deposits of a much smaller amount to go into the fund every paycheck. It's only been a few pay periods since I did that, but I know I've put more in there than she has because I have more disposable income. I brought it up to her that I thought this was a shared trip fund, not money we would take out for individual trips. She said that she would replenish the fund with higher deposits after the trip to compensate for what she takes out. I told her I don't feel comfortable with that and that she should use her own separate money to fund her trip. She said that she wouldn't be able to go then. I told her that if she can't afford it on her own, she shouldn't go. I don't want to fund her solo trips. She got upset with me and accused me of not trusting her to replenish the account. I told her that I do trust her, but that money should be used for shared travel only. I told her I know exactly how much I put in there and I don't want my money used for her trips. I told her that it's partially my fault for assuming that fund would be used only for shared trips, but it doesn't make any sense to me that we would use shared funds for individual travel. I asked her if she would be okay with me draining the account for a boys' trip, and she told me as long as I replenish it, she would be fine with it. I said that if she wants to use the money she already put into that account for her trip, then she can take exactly that amount out, but I don't want her using any of my money for her solo trip. She accused me of being controlling and not wanting her to have fun on a girl's trip. She asked if I'm worried about her cheating, and I told her of course not because I trust her. She then asked what the problem is if I trust her not to cheat, I should trust her to replenish the account. I told her that maybe setting up that account was a mistake and that I'll just take my money out of the account and she can use whatever is left for her solo trip. She got mad and told me that I should be more trusting of her and that I'm making her out to be a bad partner over nothing. Not the jerk. Even if she's 100% good on her promise to replenish that money, how long will it take? If she has less disposable income than you and already has contributed less than you, what are the chances she's going to be able to replenish it at any reasonable time frame? Where does she think these larger deposits are going to come from when she gets back? Her salary is going to be the same, so unless she has plans to cut back on something else, she's not going to have that kind of cash free. I also assume in the meantime, she would expect you to keep contributing. So yeah, in the end, she'd just be using some of your money to go on her solo trip. The pessimistic side of me also wonders if this was her plan all along. Her friends mentioned a fun girls' trip. She knew she didn't have enough. She has this great idea to set up a travel fund for the two of you, and now she conveniently has enough to go. It's only been about 5 to 6 weeks maybe, if you get paid every 2 weeks, since you guys had this idea, and she already has a plan for the money. Not the jerk, but withdraw your funds now before she uses them anyways. Not the jerk. If your girlfriend wanted to subsidize the trip by withdrawing her contribution to the account, that's fine and fair. But emptying the account and using all that money for a girl's trip is unfair and not the purpose of the shared account, despite whatever she's claiming. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
Gee, opening a shared bank account with your boyfriend or girlfriend, what could go wrong there? Why not buy a house together and put both of your names on it too? I'm sure that'll work out just fine also.
Would I be the jerk if I told my husband he has to choose between me and his friend? I, 37 female, have been with my husband, who's 44, for 17 years. We have kids, a dog, and we used to own a business together. He has this friend who happens to be his little brother's ex-girlfriend, who's 30. She's been in and out of our lives since she broke up with my brother-in-law over 12 years ago. Over the last 4 years or so, she's been constantly messaging my husband. She never sends me a message unless my husband tells her that he's not home and she's on her way, which happened only once in 4 years. She's engaged and has a baby on the way. Both my husband and his friend say they have a brother and sister relationship. My kids don't like her or her kid. Her kid is 7 years younger than our youngest. They feel like they have to babysit her when she comes over. This is what bothers me about their relationship. I'm never included in their conversations online, even when she invites herself over. My husband once told his brother that he thought she was hot, and if he was younger and single, he would try to date her. My brother-in-law sent me a message to warn me about their relationship. When I spoke to my husband about it, he laughed it off and told me his brother was jealous. My husband told me that she was the only person he would ever ask for us to hook up with, which was something we had never even discussed before, not even the option itself. When she comes over, she barely speaks directly to me, always to my husband. I have to butt into the conversation for her to even acknowledge me. I'm tired of feeling like the third wheel in their friendship. Last year, he gave me one of his old cell phones because mine had broken. He hadn't logged off of his Messenger account, so I used it to my advantage and read their messages at the time. He had admitted to her that he had told his brother that she was hot and that if he was younger and single, he would date her. He then told her that I wasn't home when he said that, and I didn't know exactly what he said. Her response was to send him a laughing emoji. Ever since, I feel like they both occasionally disrespect me in their conversations. All he does is talk about her, often. He never makes her wait when she texts him, yet sometimes when I text him, he takes an hour to respond to me. So tell me, would I be the jerk if I told him that he had to choose between his relationship with me and his friend? If I were in your shoes, I'd hire a private investigator to see what they're doing when they're not around you, if you catch my drift. Not the jerk for asking him to choose, but you know it isn't going to go well. OP. She lives in another city, my husband's hometown. It's accessible by bus and metro. We never go to her place, ever. She usually comes to our place with her fiancé. I'm pretty sure that whatever's going on with them is taking place on Messenger in a private conversation. Her fiancé doesn't use Facebook or Messenger. Update. So I guess this has been coming for a while. I've got my ducks all lined up. I spoke to him and he admitted that he did have a crush on her. That's when I told him we were done. Obviously, he doesn't want to split amicably. Finally, I found a lawyer who can help me out with the paperwork at a lower cost, $600. I'm also currently looking for an apartment. I've applied at a few places and I'm just waiting to hear back from them. I've thought about setting up a GoFundMe to help me absorb the cost of everything. Lawyers, the move, furniture, and everything else. But I'm afraid of him finding the campaign. I've already opened up a secret bank account and a PayPal account. I'm hoping to have enough money saved up and collected by the beginning of next week. I want to be out of here as soon as possible with my kids. I'll update again. Update. We've had several talks over the last few weeks. At first, he wanted to work things out. As a matter of fact, he says he never meant any of it and he keeps apologizing for breaking my trust. Now he's just being a jerk. Then he flipped and decided that since I don't want to work on things, he left for his brother's house. He hasn't seen our kids in the past month. He talks to them on the phone, but that's about it. So far, to upset me, he's cut mine and the kids' cell phone service, so I had to get us new SIM cards because otherwise we wouldn't have phones. He's refused to pay for anything in regards to school supplies and uniforms. He doesn't want to give me a dime. He hasn't done his taxes this year, which means I won't get any family allowance, CCTV, which cuts me $1,800 a month from my budget. I was able to sign the kids up for a local school supply distribution. The only thing they don't help with is the uniforms. Thankfully, only my older two need uniforms. I spoke to his friend as well. I told her everything that was going on. He told her he left me because I had cheated on him, which isn't true, and she blames herself for what happened. Personally, I just think she was putting on a show. I haven't spoken to her since. If you ask me, I still think she's a hypocrite. Finances are tough. I barely make ends meet. Thankfully, food banks exist because once rent is paid, I barely have anything left over for bills and groceries. I still haven't been able to get the money for a lawyer yet. I've tried taking loans, but that didn't go over well. I've tried the borrow sub, and that hasn't worked either. Now it's like we're in a state of Cold War. He refuses to talk to me for the time being. I guess he'll come around eventually. For the kids' sake, I hope. I feel like sometimes I'm just drowning in all this mess. Would I be the jerk if I announced my pregnancy right after my older sister using her exact announcement message? I'm 26, female. My older sister, Tiffany, who's 31, has an issue with needing attention and one-upping me and my other sister, Chloe, who's 28. Ever since we were kids, if we had something big happen or won any type of award, Tiffany would inject herself and try to pull attention away. It was never really confronted, and our parents would tell Chloe and me that, you know she is self-conscious and paranoid about not having attention, just let it go. As an example, she told Chloe that she couldn't introduce her new boyfriend, now husband, to our family or bring him to events when they started dating because they got together the same month that she, Tiffany, got engaged. She said it would pull attention from her because everyone would want to get to know the new guy instead of focusing on the wedding. She tried to ban him from the wedding, which got overruled. Additionally, she tried to schedule her wedding on the same day as my college graduation, knowing it was my graduation, but trying to pick it anyway because it was the perfect day, and I already got the experience at my high school graduation, so it doesn't matter if I miss this one. She got overruled on that too. Well, fast forward to 3 weeks ago. Chloe got a new dog that she's very excited about and sent a photo to our family group chat saying, "We are excited to announce our new member of the family. Meet Bess." Everyone was messaging back, commenting on how cute the dog is, how excited they are that Chloe got a dog, etc. Well, cue Tiffany. Not an hour after Chloe's message, she sent this. "Well, congrats on the new dog. Speaking of new additions, baby T is due this November. Smiley face." I was upset. This is exactly the same type of crap she always pulls, and I knew how excited Chloe was about their dog. I felt it was a passive-aggressive jerk move. I saw Chloe later, and she was putting on a brave face, but it was clear that she knew Tiffany had done this to one-up her yet again. Here's where I might be the jerk. I know for a fact that Tiffany's worst nightmare is for one of us to be pregnant at the same time as her. She has told a family member I talk to regularly that if I or Chloe was pregnant at the same time as her, it would ruin her pregnancy because we would be taking attention away from her. Well, I found out yesterday that I am pregnant with my first, and here's where I need judgment. Would I be the jerk if I announced my pregnancy in the family group chat using Tiffany's exact message? Example, "Well, congrats on the new baby. Speaking of new additions, baby M is due this January. Smiley face." Petty? Very. But would I be the jerk? Not the jerk. She deserves a little bit of her own medicine. Whatever you do, do not announce the actual baby name. She will steal the name as she is likely due before you. Am I the jerk for wanting to divorce my husband over a birthday party and cake? I, 40 female, have been married to my husband Sam, 41 male, for 10 years. We have 4 kids who are 22, 16, 14, and 11, and up until the last few months, I genuinely thought that we could work through anything. This is not the only situation that has happened in the last few years, just the one that finally broke me. I recently had a birthday, and Sam planned a surprise birthday party for me. He spilled the beans to me 3 days before the party, and I thought it was adorable that he was so excited about the party that he couldn't contain himself. I wish this was the case. Instead, he told me that I needed to help him clean the house to get it ready for my party. Yes, you read that right. I needed to prepare food and set the house for my own party. I agreed to clean to keep the peace, but I was upset. The day of the party quickly came, and I was devastated to learn that he didn't invite most of my friends or family. He claimed that he didn't know how to contact them. The final straw came when he carried out a cake in a flavor that he loved, nothing that I would ever choose for myself. I barely managed to keep it in and cried in the bathroom after everyone left. I feel like an afterthought and hated listening to everyone compliment him for throwing me a party. I work 2 jobs, take care of the kids, do all the meal planning, grocery shopping, and most of the housework. I'm exhausted and just wanted to feel appreciated for a day. Am I the jerk for considering divorce because I feel he doesn't care? I just can't imagine throwing away 10 years of marriage, but I feel broken. Update. We've been together for almost 14 years. The oldest is his, the middle 2 are mine, and the youngest is ours. Yes, my husband does work in a labor-intensive job, so it made logical sense for me to pick up a second job when money was tight. The problems in our marriage are not new, but I struggle with standing up for myself when it comes to him. I did have one family member that attended the party and one friend. The friend was upset for me and couldn't believe that he didn't try to ask for help with planning. As for my marriage, there are other issues than the party, as many of you kindly pointed out. I constantly feel that I'm walking on eggshells around him, and one of our kids recently told me that they hate how he treats me. There was a recent altercation at a family event that brought our problems out in the open. I would say that 60% of the time things are wonderful, and 40% of the time I'm unhappy. He let himself go in the last 5 years, and hygiene has become a major issue for him. I struggle with this because I really take care of myself. He tends to overreact to little things, which makes me feel that I can't tell him how upset I am. Today, I will be contacting a marriage therapist, and I plan on finding a therapist for myself as well. I don't know if this marriage is salvageable, but I can't continue to live like this. I love this man with all of my heart, but I want to be with someone who wants to touch me and love me for me. I hope that the marriage counselor can help us figure out more. The reason for your divorce isn't a cake or the party, it's his self-centeredness. He decided to throw a party. The reason he gave his guests was your birthday, but it was for himself. He wasn't excited about the party and told you early. He needed you to clean and organize everything for it. He only invited his friends and family. 10 plus years in, and he can't contact your friends and family. He bought his favorite cake. He took all of the accolades and credit. You don't need someone in your life that has you feeling sad, unworthy, and used. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for telling my wife to drop an issue that our daughter is having at school? My wife, 36 female, and I, 35 male, have 2 kids who are 10 and 8. We live in a school district that has already started school, and our kids have been in classes for about 2 to 3 weeks now. Our daughter has been having an issue with her lunch being stolen a few times a week. The school offers breakfast and lunch, but it's not free. We always put money in accounts for the kids in case they want to eat school lunch instead of what we pack for them, so our daughter doesn't go hungry even if her lunch is taken. She also doesn't have any dietary restrictions. My wife works night shifts as a nurse, so I'm the one getting the kids up and ready for school in the morning, including packing lunches. And yes, I put their names on everything. My daughter has told me every time that her lunch was taken. The first few times, I asked her to just eat school lunch, but she doesn't always like what they have to offer. So I started making 2 lunches for her and told her to hide one in her backpack instead of bringing it into the classroom where the other lunches are. I've also talked with her teacher about it, and she said she would be more vigilant about the lunches. But that hasn't stopped them from being stolen. My daughter is not the only one having this issue. My wife is up in arms about it and wants to bring it up to the principal, superintendent, school board, etc. She thinks that whoever is stealing from our daughter is a thief and has some kind of grudge against our daughter. I, however, have a different view on it. The way I see it, whoever is taking the lunches probably needs that food more than my daughter does. If their family had means of providing packed lunches, I would assume they would do so. The same goes for putting money in an account for school lunch. My feeling is that whichever kid is stealing lunches is hungry, and I don't want to compound that by making this a bigger issue. The teacher is already aware, and I don't feel we need to elevate this beyond that. Our family is not in dire straits financially. We do just fine, but I know that isn't the case for everyone. And if packing 2 lunches for my daughter means that a hungry kid gets a solid meal, I'm okay with it coming out of our pockets. My wife and I got into an argument about this because she wants to send an email to anyone and everyone at the school district that she feels needs to know about this. I told her that we should wait and see if the teacher can figure out who the kid is, and we can handle this without bringing the whole school district down on this kid and their family. My wife wants to set up meetings with the teacher and principal, but I told her she would need to be the one attending them because I won't. And since she usually sleeps during the day when the kids are in school, she didn't like that. She thinks I'm being a jerk by not protecting our daughter, but our daughter is not going hungry, and whoever is taking her lunches isn't either, which I'm okay with. Info. You shared your perspective and that of your wife, but what about your daughter? Is she on board with the lunch thief being a hungry kid whom she is showing mercy? OP. She is keenly aware that there are kids in her class and school that are less fortunate than we are. She sees these kids every day, and she probably has a better idea than the teacher who the culprit is. But she's 10, and as long as she gets to eat lunch every day, she doesn't have a problem with it. She was upset after the first couple of times, but after talking with her about it and confirming with her that packing 2 lunches is a solid plan, she's fine. She's now looking at it as she's doing something to help someone else without the other person needing to ask or feel embarrassed. You're the jerk. It's okay to steal if you need it more is not a good lesson for your kid or other kids. Would it be okay for someone to come steal your car because they need it more? What about your wallet? What if they stole your daughter's backpack or coat? All you're doing is contributing to the problem, and your daughter isn't the only kid being stolen from. What if one of the other kids can't afford school lunches and is going hungry? The stealing kid may be taking from someone who needs it even more than they do. This needs to be handled at an admin level, so the next step is to meet with the principal. Am I the jerk for bringing an uninvited guest to a destination wedding? I, 26 female, was invited to a wedding within my state, but far enough that to attend, I'd have to sleep over at a hotel for at least 2 nights if I arrived the night before, as it was planned to be a pretty much all-day event. I was very flattered to be invited, as I didn't think I was that close to the couple. It was a fairly small wedding, about 60 guests, including the bridal party. Obviously, as it was very small and I was possibly a second-round invitee, I didn't get a +1, which was fine with me. I ultimately decided to go. When I went to book the hotel room for my stay, I found they only had large rooms available, multiple beds or king beds, etc., as it's a popular wedding destination and it's a bit fancy. So I thought, why not invite my boyfriend, who's 26? That way we could trade off on the long drive there and back and share the big room I would have to pay for anyways. The idea was that the night we arrived, we could get dinner together somewhere new and have a nice breakfast before heading back home. While I was at the wedding events, he could just hang out in the hotel room or the pool or whatever. The wedding went great, but then after it wrapped up, the maid of honor, who I'm closer to than the bride, was chatting with me as I walked back to my room, and I knocked on the door instead of digging through my bag for my keycard. When my boyfriend opened the door for me, the maid of honor just greeted him and walked off. I didn't think it was a big deal or anything. A few days later, the maid of honor reached out and said it was awkward and uncomfortable for me to have invited him to the hotel, and it made everyone feel bad and weird that he was there waiting for the wedding to end when they hadn't invited him. We were both a bit surprised. No one even knew he was there because it didn't come up at all during the wedding. It definitely wasn't a secret, and honestly, we wouldn't have thought it was a big deal even if people did know. And he had only met the bride and groom like 6 times and had 0 issues with not being invited to their wedding. Also, if it matters, I was far from the only guest who didn't get a +1, and I never asked to be given a +1 for him. I have no clue if the maid of honor told the bride and if the bride also thinks this was inappropriate. If she hasn't, I really don't want to contact her during her honeymoon to start drama. I didn't check or anything beforehand. That's my bad, I guess. So was inviting him really a big deal? Not the jerk. This is really strange. It looks like folks are trying to create a problem when one doesn't exist. Both you and your boyfriend were happy to make this trip and for him not to intrude on their wedding. The whole incident just doesn't make sense.
Karen pulled a prank on me that ended our friendship. I'm a 24-year-old man, and my friend Jess is a 22-year-old woman. We've known each other for about 3 years since we met in a class. We've always been platonic, and to be completely honest, I'm not the type of guy to go for it. Yesterday, Jess was supposed to move. I was going to drive my truck over to her place, help her load up her stuff, and get her out of her apartment. Her situation with her roommates has become highly unstable, so she was in a rush to leave. The day before yesterday, as a way of thanking me in advance, Jess ordered pizza for the 2 of us. We were sitting there watching a movie on my couch, being platonic friends as usual, and suddenly she inched closer to me. I figured it was nothing until a minute later she got a little closer. Then she got a little closer, and all I could do was think about how it was finally happening. She squeezed up really close next to me and looked up into my face. I'm not the most confident guy, so all I could say was, "Hi," to which she responded, "Hi." Then she asked if I wanted to do something. I asked what something was, and she said, "Oh, you know, something." Still trying to keep room for plausible deniability, again, I laughed and said that I didn't know what something was. She kept staring at me and nodding, and I thought I'd take my chances. I asked her if I could kiss her. She immediately stood up, walked to the other end of the room, and sat down on the armchair. Then she took out her phone. I immediately apologized to her, and she said that I should just forget it. A few minutes of incredibly awkward silence passed, and then she said, "I guess Kim," her best friend, "was right." I asked what Kim was right about, and she explained that for several years, Kim has repeated again and again that I was only trying to hook up with her. Apparently, Kim put her up to testing me. I felt horrible. Immediately, I apologized to Jess again, said that while I found her attractive, I'd do nothing to hurt our friendship, and then apologized yet again. Jess accepted it while crying a bit. Then I told her she had nothing to worry about. After Jess went home, I got to thinking that it was incredibly mean-spirited that she would do that to me. I apologized, but that juvenile high school prank just started to strike me the wrong way. I talked to my sister, who I can talk to about anything, who reinforced that it was disgusting behavior. Then she asked for Jess's address, which I declined to give her. The next morning, instead of meeting up with Jess at the promised time, I just didn't. I had taken the day off work, but I went in anyway because I wanted to get my mind off of what had happened. Jess was blowing up my phone all day, and then I got a couple of texts from a number that I didn't recognize, which I imagine was Kim. Finally, Jess called me a creep, and that was the end. I'm really mixed on this. I feel kind of bad, but not so bad. Was I wrong? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Jess? Please let us know.
This is why Reddit boy's the only man I talk to. All the others just want a taste of what I got.
Am I the jerk for kicking out my sister-in-law? She left a fake pregnancy test in my room. I'm 33, and my husband, Adam, who's 36, came back from his month-long trip days ago. My in-laws live states away, and my sister-in-law, who's 20, was staying with me since she got kicked out of her dorm. Adam and I got back from the airport at 7 p.m. and my family came to visit. Adam went inside the bedroom and started unpacking while I was in the kitchen with my mother. I suddenly heard Adam shouting my name. He told me to come upstairs ASAP. He sounded very angry. I went to meet with him in the bedroom and I saw him holding a positive pregnancy test in his hand. I was dumbfounded. He began questioning me, saying he found it inside my sock drawer. He asked, "You gonna explain to me what the heck this is doing here?" I was speechless from my shock. As I understood what this might have looked like to him, I said I had no idea. It wasn't mine and I had never seen it before. He kept telling me to explain how it got there if I had never seen it and it wasn't mine. My family heard the commotion and tried to intervene, but Adam locked the door. I freaked out because I literally had no idea what was going on. Adam said he just wanted me to be honest. I said he had the right to be mad, but I knew nothing about it and had no explanation. He said mad doesn't even begin to cover it, then suddenly started putting everything back in his bags, saying he was going to stay with a friend until I call him up with an explanation. He unlocked the door and found my family waiting. His sister showed up, asking what was going on, then started laughing, asking, "So, was it really positive or not?" I was stunned as she proceeded to say she planted the pregnancy test in the drawer as a prank and that everyone should calm down. She was like, "Bruh, chill. Have you ever heard of fake pregnancy tests? They're pretty telling." I was livid. I screamed at her, asking how she thought this was funny and that it was okay to humiliate me in front of my family. She tried to justify it, saying it was her boyfriend's, who has ASPD by the way, idea to bring laughter to the atmosphere. But I told her she was no longer welcome at my home after what she did. Adam took a seat to calm down, watching us argue as my mom got involved, asking me to take it easy. I insisted that my sister-in-law pack and leave right then, and she started crying and apologizing, saying she had nowhere to go, begging Adam to do something, but he didn't. I called her an Uber and had her leave. Mother-in-law heard and started calling me, shaming me for kicking out her daughter like that. I told her what her daughter did, and she still said my reaction was over the top, as her daughter is being naive and as a kid acting recklessly. She said we're her family and I should consider taking her back, but I said I won't. Edit. I too was confused by Adam's reaction and have a feeling he was in on the prank too, based on how serious he was being. Mom thought the same thing, and I wouldn't be surprised since A, he remained quiet when I argued with his sister, and B, he always does pranks with her and sees nothing wrong with her behavior. He actually thinks she's funny. I don't know if I'll ever be sure about him taking part in her pranks. Edit. Adam and I struggle with infertility on his side because of his health issues, so that added to my anger since it seemed like his sister was being cruel and insensitive. Who do you agree with, OP or sister-in-law? Please let us know.
I'd call up those in-laws and tell them why don't they take her in?
A trip around the world in 80 minutes. This story comes from when I worked in an inbound call center. I handled escalation calls. When someone called in regarding their service plan with complaints that cannot be handled with a regular agent's authority, or the caller demanded to speak with a supervisor or manager, the call got transferred into my team's call queue, and one of us handled it. Little background. I was born and raised in the Southwest. When I was a wee child, I spoke with a very heavy stutter. It took several years and lots of patience on my mother's part to teach me how to speak normally. The outcome was that I had to enunciate all my words carefully and thus spoke without any hint of a local accent. Later, during my middle school days, I got teased a lot for not having a proper accent, so I decided to teach myself how to speak with the proper accent. I watched a lot of my dad's old black and white westerns to learn the lingo. Then I started talking like Scotty from the original Star Trek series. It was fun, so I started copying other accents from TV and movies. I had over a dozen, including German, pirate, and badly dubbed Chinese kung fu. Lots of pauses, simple phrases, and every sentence ends in ha. One bad side effect came about though. Often when I'm around a person with a heavy accent, I subconsciously begin to mimic their accent. I don't realize I'm doing it until it's pointed out. Usually the other person thinks I'm making fun of them or something. To avoid getting punched in the face, I have to do some quick explaining without the borrowed accent. So the call. A call comes into my queue and I answer it as normal. Kind of. I had been joking around with my supervisor while using an Indian accent, so when I answered the call, I was still using the accent. The woman caller was immediately furious. She started screaming at the top of her lungs that she had specifically demanded to someone who spoke English, not well, let's just say her choice of words lay heavy on the mean side and leave it at that. Realizing my error, I dropped the accent and tried to talk to the lady normally, but she would have none of it. She continued on her horrible diatribe about call center workers, how there weren't any proper English speakers anymore, and cussing me up one side and down the other. Now, I've handled a lot of angry calls by small-minded people, but there is one hot button I will not tolerate. The caller started insulting my parents. "You wish to talk to someone who speaks English, correct?" I broke in, dropping back into the Indian accent at the same time.
Yes.
"Not a problem," I said. "I will transfer you to someone who speaks English. But I must warn you, do not disconnect from the call for any reason whatsoever. We are experiencing a rather large call volume at this time. You are currently at the top of the queue. But if you disconnect and call back, you will be all the way back at the bottom of the call line. And you do not want that, correct?"
God, no.
"Very well. Please stay on the line and the next available English speaker will be with you shortly. Have a most pleasant day." Then I put her on hold. It should be noted that we were not supposed to put callers on hold, but I did so that she would 1. Think she was being transferred, and 2. Make her listen to the horrible hold music. Placing a caller on hold immediately sent up a red flag in the call monitoring software. Normally, a supervisor would come storming over and demand answers. My supervisor, however, had his cubicle right next to mine and had been leaning over the top when I had initially fumbled the call. He had also patched his phone into my line and heard everything the caller had said. "What are you doing?" he asked, while smiling a wicked smile. Exactly what she demanded. She wants to talk with someone who speaks English. Then that is exactly what she's going to get, I replied with my own grin. After 5 minutes, I took the call off hold and answered with my best Russian accent in place. Then on hold again, 5 minutes later, German accent, then French, then Swedish, then Mario Brothers Italian, so on and so forth. For over an hour, I kept transferring this jerk each time, answering the phone with both good, bad, and horrible accents speaking English. I thought for sure she would have caught on around the 30-minute mark when I spoke pirate. She didn't, so I continued. After about 1 hour and 20 minutes of sending this woman on a verbal tour of the world, she was sobbing so hard I could barely make out her distressed words, so I went in for it. I answered the phone with a thick southern drawl. She was so happy. She spent a good 10 minutes telling me what a horrible experience she has had just to finally talk with someone who speaks proper English. I asked her what I could do for her, and she told me what her issue was. It was something so simple that one of the regular agents could have handled it in less than 2 minutes. Finishing up the call, the woman once more thanked me for speaking proper English. I dropped back into the Indian accent. "Not a problem at all, madam. It was a pleasure to handle your call. You know, it's funny. You sound just like a woman I spoke to an hour ago. Isn't life strange?" With a satisfied smile, I hung up during the scream of choking rage. "What do you mean I can't stay in a room I didn't pay for?" Ah, the life of night audit. Tonight, the tale of Karen and the sold-out night. Our cast tonight includes me, super awesome amazing evening girl, super mega jerk Karen, henceforth referred to as Karen, and the police. Our tale begins at 10 when Karen came down to get a room transfer. See, her precious little dumpling's wheelchair did not fit into a normal room. Our evening girl transferred her to an 88 room. I get a text at 10:30 saying that Karen is still in the original room. I come in at 11 and this is what follows. Me. "So, what's up?" Evening girl. "Well, I transferred her and checked someone else into that room, but they came back down saying it was occupied." Me. "All right. You mind staying a bit late and watching the desk?" I head upstairs and knock on the door. Me. "Front desk. Ma'am, you need to vacate the room." Karen.
What? I have this room. I don't understand. Can I call you on the phone?
Me. "No, you need to open the door and vacate the room." Back and forth for 10 minutes. Finally head down and she's on the phone with evening girl. She hands me the phone. Me. "Ma'am, you need to vacate the room. That room is no longer yours." But the evening girl said that she just transferred my daughter, not me. Me. No, she transferred the room. That means everyone in the original room needs to move to the new room. Well, she said, and I'm saying you have two options. Either vacate the room or vacate the property. Well, she said, I understand that is what you heard, but you need to vacate the room. But you're not listening to me. She said over and over for 5 minutes. Finally, me. All right, ma'am, your options have changed. Either vacate the property or the police will assist you. Karen. But she said, I hang up on her. Shortly after, I get a notification that a police call is going out from that room. Yay. I call the non-emergency number and explain the situation. He updates and says police are on their way. While we are waiting, she decides to come down. It's now 11:30. Karen. I'm just trying to understand, because there was a miscommunication. You said that you transferred my daughter to a different room. Evening girl. I said I transferred the room. I did not make you an entire reservation due to the fact we are sold out. You never told me that. You said you moved my daughter. Me. Ma'am, we aren't talking about this. Either leave or the police will make you leave. Karen. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to her. Me. I don't care who you're talking to. The fact remains. What is your decision? But she said... Oh, here we go again. That goes on for a bit until finally we walk off and wait for the cops. Oh, and in this scuffle we learned that her kid she moved to the room is 10. Police finally get here and she spins a sob story about how the mean hotel worker is kicking her and her disabled kid onto the street at midnight. I explain to the police that she is trespassed and can no longer stay here. The kid can stay here with the other adult, but she is no longer allowed to stay. Surprise! She lied about having another adult. She has 3 rooms, one with her in it, the vacant room, one with a 10-year-old in it, one with 3 other kids in it. The police really don't want the backlash of kicking out a disabled kid, so I offer to come to a middle ground. I call my manager and we come up with a plan. Karen has 2 options: pack everyone up and leave, or fit everyone into the king ADA room, which we are breaking fire code offering it to her. She tries wiggling her way out of it, but luckily the cop shuts her down. Karen. But earlier the other girl said... Cop. It doesn't matter what she said. These are your options right now. Karen. I'm just trying to understand why she said... Cop. You can figure that out later. Which option do you want? Well, I need to go talk to my kids. Cop. You are their mother. You don't need to talk with them. Make a decision. I don't see why we can't stay how we are. Cop. You were given 2 options. They are being generous here. They're breaking fire code for you, so you don't have to pack your kids up and move hotels. I will move into the king, and my other kids can stay in the other room. That's not an option. Fine. So I guess then I'll wake up all of my kids and force them to move to the one room where someone will have to sleep on the floor. Cop. Good choice. All right. How long is it going to take you to move everything? An hour. An hour? Okay, fine. You have an hour to move everyone. You're not to come back down here and squabble. Karen. Just keep her away from me. Meaning me. Me. I will rekey the rooms at 1:30 and I have nothing more to say to you. Cop. All right. So no squabbling. If you come down and start, she can call us back and you will be asked to leave. If you do not move by 1:30 and there are more problems, you will be asked to leave. Is that clear? Yes. She starts walking away, and before the cops have even moved, she comes back. And don't think I won't go to social media. I will call you out by name. I will. Cop. Stop. See this? This is squabbling. Just go to the rooms and get your kids. Leave her alone. Well, I want the manager's number. Me. I'm not giving you her number. You can call the direct line. I want her name then, and her email. Me. Her name is Doesn't Take Any BS Manager, who's upset that I woke her up already, and she's upset at Karen. She will be back at 7 a.m. No, I want her name written down. All right, here it is. She storms off again and comes back down after the cops have left. My key doesn't work, and I hope you're happy with yourself. Karma is coming for you. Me, thinking of the amazing Reddit story. Yes, it is. Karen. And I will never be staying here again. Me. Thank the Lord. And don't have your evening girl tell guests lies. She didn't. Here's your key. I'll be up at 1:30 to change them. She then came down multiple times saying the key didn't work for her kids' room. I finally went up and the door was locked. Me. The pull lock is engaged, meaning a key is useless. You'll need your kids to unlock it from the inside. Surprised that when I went up, the rooms were empty. But there was trash all over and the phone was pulled out of the wall in the vacant room. And the kids' room door had something shoved in to keep it open that I couldn't find. You'll lose most of your money if you cancel your holiday with us. I recently had a holiday booked to Mexico, which at the time of booking, early 2020, it came to around £2,200 for 2 people for 2 weeks. We were pretty fortunate to have been able to get that at that sort of a price. Anyway, lockdown happened, and as you can imagine, the holiday we booked with 2 British holiday travel agent was postponed. Feeling a little anxious to go abroad, even when restrictions were lifted, my partner and I decided we wanted to cancel and rebook at another time. Truth be told, we could have also benefited quite a lot with having some of that money back. I called them to cancel after a rather lengthy hold to get through to them to be told, "Sorry, if you want to cancel, you will lose £2,100 of your £2,200 that you paid. However, you can make a free of charge amendment and you or we will pay the difference. So if your new holiday is cheaper, we will refund the difference." Okay, let me speak with my partner and see what we can do. Malicious compliance begins. I have no interest in postponing my holiday, so I browse their other destinations on the website. I phone back the next day. "Hi, I'd like to make an amendment to my booking, please." 2. "Sure, no problem. Do you have a destination in mind?" Me. "Yes, I found this rather appealing location in the Canary Islands, which also happens to be your cheapest holiday. Oh, and I want to amend it from 2 weeks to your minimum stay." 2. "Okay, so you'll have a refund of £1,750 and your holiday has now been amended." After receiving my refund a few days later, I call them and tell them I wish to cancel my new crappy cheap holiday. At this point, I've lost about half of what the crappy cheap holiday would have cost. Instead of losing £2,100, I only ended up losing £280. Granted, it's still not ideal to have lost out on £280, but it sure is better than losing most of what I paid. Edit. To those saying about chargeback, I didn't purchase the holiday on a credit card, I used a debit card. Chargeback wouldn't have worked as the money belonged to me, not the bank. Edit 2. For those saying this isn't malicious compliance, if their policies were designed to make things difficult for the customer, they wouldn't have made the refund process so difficult. I would say this is malicious compliance as I was using a loophole in their policies to ensure the best result for me. Edit 3. Well, I didn't know you could do chargebacks on debit cards. Thank you for educating my smooth brain. Rude? We're just sold out. So this lady's called me 3 times within the last hour or so. First time she called, I was being the semi-cheery front desk agent I always am. Tried to answer her million questions without sounding annoyed because there was a line forming in front of me, even though half her questions were different variations of the same things. She's asking about jacuzzi rooms, and I finally get her to understand they're at our sister property down the street. So after 80 more questions about transportation from there to the restaurant and spa, I go ahead and transfer her and assume it's the end. Phone rings again. I can't not recognize the voice I spent 30 minutes rephrasing answers to. She asks about jacuzzi rooms again, and this time it only takes about 10 minutes to remind her we don't have jacuzzi rooms at this location and transfer her to the sister property. I hope and pray that's the end, because between 2 weddings and a 66th high school reunion, I simply don't have the time to entertain the ramblings of this person. Again, another call from this lady wasting my time because she can't seem to understand that we do not have the room type she's looking for. Again, I transfer her to our sister location and ask the gods why they have to plague my time with someone this blatantly moronic, that they do not understand a very simple thing about being told well over the acceptable number of times to be told something. Like, just try looking online since you can't understand the words that are coming out of my mouth apparently. I then get a call from the spa upstairs. Nothing out of the ordinary because people want to charge services to their rooms all the time. Spa girls can be a bit rude, but in my experience, that's everyone in the cosmetology industry. But today, she sounded extra rude, like it was on purpose. She asks me if there's any mail down here answering phones because this lady has been hung up on by some rude man a couple times now. I tell her it's just me and my feminine customer service voice. She proceeds to tell me whoever is answering phones keeps hanging up on her and that she needs a room from date X to date Y. I tell her I know the lady, that she called 3 separate times, and I probably totaled close to an hour with her. I let our spa know she's insistent on a jacuzzi room and that I've already transferred her to our property with jacuzzis 3 times. I guess the first time she was transferred over, she was told they were sold out for her dates. I say, well, there's not much we can do about being sold out. I'm sorry if she thinks that's rude. Spa lady then says the following to me, paraphrased because I'm still seething. Okay, well, she's really upset because I guess front desk agents have been really rude to her all day and hanging up on her, and we've gotten a lot of complaints recently about how the front desk staff is just all really rude. So I'm gonna leave a message for management so they can address it with you all, because there's really no reason to be treating guests like this. It's not only losing business for you guys, but us as well, and it's unacceptable. Hopefully, they'll call a meeting or something. What? After that, she just hangs up, and I'm still standing there, holding the phone with my mouth open. I'd like to see her work a real front desk someday, where she doesn't get to be some stuck-up jerk because she can. See her put on that fake customer service voice we all have to have, and deal with people yelling at her. She's not my boss. She's not even the boss of the spa. She's just the jerk who books the appointments. Leave a message for the managers and have a meeting. Thank y'all. I just needed to get that off my chest, or else it was gonna weigh on me all night. Am I the jerk for not watching my sister while my parents are in Italy? So ever since I, 22 male, graduated from college, I have a serious struggle with independence and boundaries with my parents. More specifically, my mother. I moved to the city that I grew up in because I received a fantastic job opportunity that I couldn't turn down coming straight out of school. My sister, 14, was extremely excited because that meant that she could be closer to her brother for a few more years. Unfortunately, this means that my parents feel entitled to frequent visits and regular meetings. I have my own apartment that is somewhat close to their house, which doesn't help my case. I often work 12 to 14-hour shifts, and I can sometimes work nights with less than a day's notice. That, alongside trying to kindle friendships and hobbies, I can be very stretched for time. Anyways, my mother just informed me that they will be going to Italy next summer, 2022, and that I have to help out with my sister. She tells me that I have to stay at their house for the 2 weeks that they are gone, and I can just commute from there. My commute is already 45 minutes from my apartment, and they're about 15 minutes further away. That also doesn't take into account the fact that I will be on a different job by that time that will be even further away. So this would result in 1.5 hours with minimal traffic for my commute from their house. Having to wake up at 4:30 a.m. to not get home until 7:30 p.m. just doesn't sound like something I want to do. She states that they legally cannot leave my sister home alone for that long, but I've looked at the law in my state, and it does not state anything about age restrictions like this. But even to that point, she will be 15 at the time of the trip. I might sound naive, but I feel like a 15-year-old does not need a full-time babysitter. I've told her that I'm more than happy to help out and stop by the house and take her out occasionally, but that I cannot responsibly stay at their house for that long. Heck, I even said that I can stay the night on weekends or nights I don't have to work. She then responds with, "Yes, you can. You can stay there." She refuses to see the fact that I will be so far away for more than half the day. I have my job and responsibilities to tend to, and my girlfriend and I will be living together by then. Eventually just said that I'm unprofessional and immature, and that they will find someone else because I'm too much of an inconvenience. I'm more than happy to help, and I'm excited for them to be going on this trip. But being that far from work for so long does not make sense to me. I just find it disrespectful that she would demand that I do this, especially after booking the trip and not asking me beforehand. Am I the jerk? Edit. For everyone saying that I could take her to my apartment, that's fair. However, they have 2 dogs and 2 cats that I'm assuming they won't pay to have boarded. But thanks for the support. Should I expose my mom's Facebook lies? I, 28 female, moved in with my conservative parents for a few months earlier this year because they needed help with life during lockdown. During that time, like many people, I launched myself into baking. It's always been a special hobby as I'm pretty shy, and baking things for people I care about is one of the few ways I can express myself. Over the years, when I've made something challenging, my mom, who's 65, has insisted I send her photos. I always thought it was cool that she was interested and would send her lots of pictures.
Needless to say, when I was living with her, she was hovering around like some kind of pastry paparazzi. Tonight, while visiting, Mom asked me to help her with her Facebook privacy settings. While doing so, I discovered that she's been posting pictures of my bakes with me cropped out and claiming them as her own creations. I haven't added her on Facebook, so I had no idea that she had been doing this for literally years. The captions were always something like, "Freshly baked apple pie. Thank goodness OP can rely on me to bake for her." Underneath the posts, family and friends usually comment on how great she bakes and that I was spoiled for being a grown adult who still didn't know how to cook. After going through all of the posts, I noticed there was a theme. She depicts me as a pathetic, lonely loser, incapable of looking after myself. Most of her family lives overseas and have no idea that she's lying, while her friends don't know me well enough to question it. So Reddit, would I be the jerk if I logged into my mom's Facebook and changed all the captions to be more honest? I hate confrontations, but I don't know what to do. Update. It's been almost 24 hours, and I just want to say thanks to everyone who has responded. You're all totally right. My initial approach was immature and lazy. I was taking the easy way out and not facing having the awkward and frankly painful conversation required. I spent some time today practicing what I want to say so that I don't freeze up like I usually do. I've also told my dad about the posts. He doesn't have Facebook. He was shocked but not surprised. He said that she's previously posted fake holiday photos and once claimed she had rescued a puppy. She thinks it's funny and that they're just white lies. He found out when he ran into people who asked him about them, which led to a lot of confusion and embarrassment for him. He's asked me to come over tomorrow. He's going to help keep things calm so that I can talk to her. When she gets upset, she starts shouting, which usually ends the conversation because I freeze up. I've had time to cool down, and while I'm still really hurt, I mainly just feel overwhelmingly sad for her. I think our chat might turn into a bigger mental health discussion because, as many people have pointed out, she must be deeply unhappy with parts of her life if she has to pretend to be this apple pie baking, puppy saving, luxury holiday taking person. Regardless of how the chat goes, I know I need some time away from her to process things. As suggested, I've added a few members of my mom's family on Facebook where I've uploaded pictures and progress shots of my baking. I exchanged messages with my aunt, mom's cousin, this afternoon that I haven't seen since I was a kid and arranged a video chat with her and her family this weekend. She mentioned that she loves cooking and sent me a family recipe that I plan to record and share with just my family. I'll probably babble all the way through it and look stupid, but I'm excited to find a positive way to clear my name. I've gotten so many great ideas from everyone here, and I'm grateful to you all that I didn't go through with my terrible original idea. I honestly can't thank you folks enough for your advice. Karen invites me on a date and brings 2 other dudes. Backstory. I, 24 male, met this girl, 23, Katie, at the gym. We clicked and hung out a few times over the past couple of months. Katie invited me out for a dinner at a fancy restaurant to talk about our relationship. Out of nowhere, she told me that her 2 friends were coming to the dinner. She doesn't have female friends. I then asked if I could bring a few friends for dinner too. I didn't want this to be a 3-on-1 thing. She agreed, but didn't seem happy about it. At the dinner, Katie brought 2 guys with her who were clearly into her. I had invited 3 friends, my best friend since childhood, his fiance, and my friend, Case, Juhi, and Yusung. Yusung came before us, but then had to leave even before we got seated. She invited him to join us at the gym since he clearly works out. He texted me later that she seemed nice, but the way she let the 2 guys grill me was weird. After he stepped out, we got seated, and Katie's friends said they had to leave even though they just ordered a ton of appetizers. Case and Juhi came in a little bit later, and Katie did this weird little laugh and said that it would be nice if people arrived on time, especially since half the people left. She seemed to only ask questions to Case, who's shy around new people, and kept complimenting Juhi's jewelry and clothing, but in a really weird way. Katie told me she didn't realize I had so many Asian friends. At the dinner, she ordered 2 entrees and barely touched either of them, or the appetizers she and her friends ordered. She did get multiple drinks. She made a few jokes, like that I liked her because guys like girls who are one of the guys. When the bill came, it was way beyond my budget, and she said it should be split equally between me and Case. I said that it should be split between us, Katie and me, and them, Case and Juhi, based on what we ordered. Since they only had 2 entrees, and we had 3 entrees and a ton of appetizers, we should pay the bigger amount.
I was fine splitting equally between Katie and me, but she started calling me a cheapskate for not offering to pay for her. I told her it wasn't my fault her friends ordered appetizers and then left. She said if I was willing to cover more of the bill without her approval, then I should be fine paying the entire thing. I told her that was dumb and I wasn't going to pay for things she ordered. Juhi offered to pay the bill. Katie said that that wasn't the problem and said I was accusing her of being a gold digger. I said the reason she's not like the other girls is because she's incredibly rude. That's why no girls want to be her friends. She stormed out of the restaurant. In the end, I paid for our entrees and appetizers and Juhi paid for their part. I've been ignoring Katie's texts, but I want to know, am I the jerk? Karen tries to get me to give her son my PS5, Xbox, and my TV. I'm about 20 years old. Never ask a lady her true age, and I am autistic. I'm high functioning in that I can type and play video games very well, but my social skill disabilities are so severe that I qualify for disability. The government gives me a monthly disability check, which means I do not have to work. As such, I have plenty of free time. During the start of lockdown, I was severely lucky that I was able to score a PS5 and an Xbox Series X using the first stimulus check. It was for the economy, so I did not feel guilty spending the money on something like that. With the second and third checks, I bought a new TV. I bought a Sony 65-inch TV, which could utilize those consoles' capabilities to their fullest. 4K, 120Hz, the works. Now, we have some neighbors, and this is where Entitled Mom comes in. My nephew, whom my younger sister was mentally incapable of caring for, is best friends with one of the neighbor's kids, and he comes over a lot. Being the kind aunt, I often let the kids use my consoles. I have some rules they have to follow. Face masks, hands washed, hand sanitizer, etc. because I haven't had my shot. I am allergic. I'm 100% pro shots though. After a few months, the kid begs his mom to buy him a PS5 and an Xbox, and as expected, she cannot find one. She then comes to me, and I swear in the most Karen of Karen voices she asks, "Excuse me, can I buy your consoles off you? My son loves playing on them, and I would appreciate if you could give them to me. I'll give you $300. I was shocked. I knew she was looking online for them, and she knew they cost $500 each, so I responded. I can talk to people I'm familiar with, but new people I shut down easily. Sorry, each console is $500 and not for sale. Sorry you're unable to find one, but I play on these all the time, and I already sold my PS4 Pro and my Xbox One X. These are all I have to play my library of games. Cue entitled parent mode. Ah, you're a young lady. You shouldn't be playing with boys' toys anyways. You should be looking for a boyfriend and enjoying life. Maybe start a family. I'll give you $500 to give me both, and that's my final offer. I was taken aback by the second lowball offer. I decided to play on Karen's lack of knowledge of how these systems worked and told her this. Ma'am, these are next generation hardware, and they will not function properly on older TVs. I know you haven't gotten your son a new TV yet, and the one I have there is $2,400 and is the minimum you need in order to use these consoles. Sorry, but even if I sold them to you, they wouldn't work on your older TV. Super Karen Level 2 activated. And give me your TV too. All of this is used, so I'll take them all for $1,000. Be grateful you're getting that much. Again, taken aback, but finally my mother came down the stairs, hearing all of the shouting and stepped in. Karen, it's time for you to go home. Stop harassing my daughter. And also, I feel like it would be best for my grandson if your son never came to see him again. I raised him to be a kind, generous young man, and I feel like you're a bad influence on him. Now leave my home or else I will call the police. Karen left, and often when I'm going out for food or to pick up a new game at the store, I see her in the yard and she gives me this cold, evil glare, like I'm the bad guy. My former employers lost their client and business because of me. A few years back in 2018, I had decided to switch employers. I worked from home as a chat support specialist and eventually a supervisor for a major tech company. I had decided to switch to a small-time customer support agency that was just starting a new chat team. They had better pay and benefits because they only had a small number of employees compared to the former. The description of the position I was to be hired for was another salary-based supervisory role for their brand new chat team for the client. I'd basically be doing the same things as my previous job, but also spearheading this small department, while simultaneously training other coworkers with zero experience in chat support. This was going extremely well, and our client was ecstatic at the results of the new chat program. They had personally sent me an email over my progress. The company I left was, and still is, known worldwide to have the friendliest and most professional customer support team out of any other company, and so it was easy to apply what I learned to this new position. After about 2 months of doing this, the person I directly reported to, the regional supervisor, was retiring. Our new regional came in and was friendly at first, but decided that he didn't want to waste his time on chat and directed me to phone support, which was not in my phone description, nor what I was hired for by any means. He cited that the client was unhappy with the results, which was in stark contrast to what they had told me directly. Even after forwarding him the email, he was still not doing anything about it. So I complied. It took just 2 days for the client to have reached out to me personally. After explaining to them the situation, they were livid. My new regional had lied to me about his contact with the client and had essentially ignored our client's attempt to contact him about this issue. I had continued to work in the supervisory role for phones until the first quality review of my employees came up. For team leads and direct call center employees both, this is where I review their interactions and grade them based off their strengths and weaknesses. Our regional wanted me to even include the chat support team who were neither hired or trained for phones. He refused to give them training. On every single employee who was hired for chat support, I had filed all of them as unable to be completed, and in my notations, I included that this is not the position they were hired or trained for, and thus an analysis could not be accurately completed. And I sent this to both the regional manager and our client as well, since at the point I had a direct contact email. I was responded to the same day by whoever it is within our client who oversees all of the outsourcing. The only words I got back were, "We will deal with this." The client held a meeting the following week with my employers. I'm not sure what was said in that meeting, but word got back to everyone that the client had dropped us for breach of contract. Because this was a small office and our company's only client for several years, this was bad. After that, me and my team were offered a position with the company directly, doing the things we were hired to do, but required us to move about 4 hours north. So unfortunately, none of us decided to accept the offer. I collected unemployment until I found a new job. Now the company is out of business and is currently being sued by some other employees for unpaid wages. The new case has been going on since 2019. Edit for clarification purposes because it seems to have confused some people. It's just one office of less than 300 employees. The name of his position was Regional Supervisor. It was pretty stupid to name him that, but that's what he was called, even though he worked the only office that existed. I'll assume it was to make the role look more attractive than it actually is. That's a common happenstance. That's not my job, ma'am. This happened 2 years back before lockdown struck, and I had no more reason to shop for new clothes since I'm at home most of the time. For context, it was Christmas season with less than a week before the date. It was nearing the end of my 11th year, and I was with my friend looking for new casual outfits for the year-end party that our school held annually. It was lunch break, and we were walking around the mall located directly in front of our school. We were both wearing black pants, black leather shoes, and yellow-collared t-shirts since our school decided to color code the students according to their departments. The staff inside the mall were wearing tailored shirts and skirts, so the situation I went through was even more baffling. We decided to first look at the shoe aisle since there were less people there and my friend wanted to wear new shoes during the party. I noticed that there was a group of older women, maybe in their early to late 30s, in the middle of the store, whom despite the hustle and bustle were by far the noisiest there. For some reason, the moment I looked at them, a woman who was taller than me, I was small, even for our country standards, and had this audacious pair of eyebrows matched with an even more offending lipstick shade was eyeing me. Let's call her Karen. My gut told me that it was not going to end well with her, and so I avoided further eye contact and just continued shopping. It was about 15 minutes later when I finally found the dress that I wanted that I hear the group of women saying things along the lines of, "It's so messy in here. Shouldn't this be a mall? There are clothes everywhere.
No one is even here to assist people. Some of the staff are just standing around.
For the record, it was a fairly small store, and since it was that time of the year, the staff were awfully busy. There was a tsunami of people, so it's no question that the place had clothes lying around. The place was normally very tidy though. I just continued to ignore them and proceeded to kneel down to the floor and search the lower racks for accessories. No more than a minute later, loud stomping headed my way, followed by a sharp tap, almost a slap, on my shoulder. And there she goes, Karen, in her glowering stance above me. Remember, I was literally kneeling down. Without even letting me ask what her problem was, she bombarded me with her questions and accusations.
I've been calling out your attention for a while now, but you were ignoring me. How thick of a skin must you have? Look at this place. It's a mess. How could anyone find what they are looking for? Shouldn't you be assisting the customers and folding the clothes that they chose from, putting them back where they got them from?
I had to bite my lip to stop myself from questioning her sanity. There were at least 40 customers at the store at the time. How could she expect to see a staff waiting for every single one of them? My friend, who was in the aisle behind me, was watching all of this unfold. After more than a minute of her yapping, I slowly and clearly said, "Ma'am, that is not my job. I don't work here." She then interjected, saying,
"That's impossible. You look just like them."
I wanted to capture that moment when she looked at the cashier, which was about 5 aisles away, and realized that we were wearing different uniforms. She backed off without apologizing and stormed off to her companions. Needless to say, she was embarrassed. I was really out of myself at that moment, and my friend and I decided to just get out of the store because, honestly, people were looking and I didn't want the attention. I forgot to get my stuff, and my friend just paid for hers. As soon as I got home, I told my mom about it, and we rushed back to the store to buy that dress that I had found. Kudos to my mom.
Am I the jerk for billing my boyfriend and not caring if the providers sue him if he doesn't pay? I, 26 female, have been in a relationship with my boyfriend, who's 28, for a year. He is an artist, that is to say, he feels like Picasso while venting his frustrations from a full-time job at a bank, accountant, and a canvas while I am a biomedical engineer. As such, I have a toolbox in the house that I bought for household repairs and the like, while another bigger toolbox sits in my room. We don't live together, filled with my very expensive and specialized tools I use for work. Specifically, I work at a hospital installing, maintaining, and repairing the big machinery used in diagnostics. I must remark that these tools cannot just be bought at a hardware store, as a lot of them are machine-specific or brand-specific, and that I must use them to maintain the insurance and guarantee of these machines. It has never bothered me that he uses common house things to add to his canvas, as he has never taken anything that wasn't already on its way to the bin or donation. But one day I got back from work and he is in the house, in my backyard, flinging paint at a canvas with some weird shape stuck to it. At first, I didn't know what he had pasted on there until I saw my toolbox dumped by his feet and a lot of the tools just strewn all around. The tipping point came when I saw my oscilloscope broken apart and glued to the monstrosity in the yard. That thing alone cost me $750, let alone the rest of my ruined tools. I saw red. I don't even remember what I said to him, only that he ran away and was actually crying, full-on bawling. I had no time nor the patience to deal with that, so I took inventory of— where'd you find this guy? So I took inventory of what he ruined and talked to my boss to see what I could do. Non-electric or simple tools like special screwdrivers. How he ruined a screwdriver, I have no idea. Clamps, measuring tools, the hospital will replace at no cost, but the other ones, like the oscilloscope and a few other electric tools, I had to replace myself. I looked for the exact tools I had before, and it came up to $1,876 to replace everything. Checked with a family member who is a lawyer, bought all the replacements, and sent the bill to my boyfriend. Well, his mom called me screaming, saying how could I do this to her baby, and how he doesn't have the money to pay for it. I know for a fact he does. I told her that if he doesn't pay, the provider will sue him, and so will I, and then just hung up. Not 10 minutes later, he called. He was crying and screaming, so I just left the phone next to me and continued to work. When I didn't hear the ruckus from the phone, I picked it up again. Being noisy in the action,
So he realizes I didn't listen to a word he said and asked if he was done throwing a tantrum. He hung up. I felt justified at the moment, but I was telling this to a coworker and he said I was too harsh. But I did what I had to do in order to continue my work. If he wanted to paint tools, there was another toolbox with cheaper stuff in the kitchen. He knows my toolbox is more expensive, so why? I don't understand. So Reddit, am I the jerk?
I really hope he let out a ree as he ran away crying. Ree!
Am I the jerk for being at my breaking point with my husband's made-up language? My husband has always been a bit goofy, giving his own names to things and doing impressions. About 18 months ago, this started to increase a lot. It's now a constant presence in our lives, and I'm finding it difficult to live with. Examples: he has his own names for most retail outlets, professionals, and organizations. Eat your greens instead of Walgreens. He has about 30 to 40 everyday words that he insists on using in place of normal ones. Scuppers means yes. Bing means no. Bagayaya means good night. He constantly does weird sound impersonations, not like celebrities or characters, but a single noise that's a made-up sound or something childish, like a fart from a TV show. He speaks random words like garbage or jerk whilst burping or farting. He has made up names for our friends, which he uses sometimes even under his breath when we're out with them. Pam and Will is pig and wig. I've just had enough. We got into bed the other night and I said goodnight, and he said, "Bagayaya!" in the high-pitched voice he always does it in. I snapped and asked why he couldn't just speak to me normally, and he just laughed and came right up close to my face, and he did it again. Bagayaya! His whistling is constant. He speaks to our kid in this stupid language, and I'm worried it's going to confuse normal language development because he changes the words so often. Our toddler could be about to hurt himself, and instead of saying no or come here, he'll say some ridiculous made-up word or sound, and then get annoyed when our kid doesn't know what he wants. He's normal in other respects, works in finance, and is totally professional around his colleagues, but different at home. I told him it needs to stop. I don't mind it occasionally or for fun, but it's all the time, and it's wearing me down. He got upset and said I couldn't take a joke, and that I'm not fun anymore. It's true that I've become more irritable and noise-averse since we had kids, but I'm so worn out and over it and just want him to relate to me like an adult. Edit, to answer some of the frequent questions. 1. I do not believe, but I'm not health qualified, that he displays any symptoms of disorders. 2. He's physically well by all measures. He's for sure not having a stroke or a significant physical health event. 3. Yes, I can see this could be a reaction to stress. 4. For those asking why I married him, he did not do this to the extent before we had kids. Occasionally, yes, with the occasional name or word, but not in this regular. He's amazing in many other ways, but this one thing is now too much for me. I don't feel it's right to discount or throw out the whole marriage because of it, but it does need to change. 5. He will not go to therapy. 6. We have discussed it calmly previously. He did not take me seriously or make changes. He sees this as funny and just a joke. I agree that we need to talk more. 7. Yes, it can be funny occasionally. I'm not trying to spoil his fun. I also need an adult partner at times, and for him to stop when not appropriate. Am I the jerk for canceling a couple of streaming services and telling my wife to get a job if she wants them back? I, 32, male, have been married to my wife, who's 33, for close to 5 years. We have 2 kids, a son who's 3 and a daughter who's 1.5. When we got married, we both had jobs. However, maybe about a year after we were married, my wife tearfully confessed to me that she was miserable at her job and wanted to quit. She told me that her boss was treating her like garbage and that she woke up every morning wanting to throw up. She legitimately seemed dejected, and so I told her to quit and to find another job where she would be treated better. She quit. I expected her to go out and start looking for something else, but she didn't seem too eager. Whenever I gently brought it up, she responded, "I'm just trying to figure out my next move. Stop pressuring me." Not long after, she got pregnant with our son, and then while he was still very young, she got pregnant with our daughter. A few months after she was born, when I asked my wife what her plans were job-wise, she finally just said, "I don't want to go back to work. You make enough for us to get by. Just let me be a wife and a mother. I told her that I was concerned that I don't actually make enough to give our family as good of a life as I'd like, but she insisted that we can make it work. I have to admit, she's probably a model homemaker and mom. When I wake up for work in the morning, there's always freshly brewed coffee and breakfast waiting for me. The house is always clean, and other than yard work or repairs, I basically don't have to do anything around the house. And she's a great mother to our kids. I'm quite lucky in many ways. However, money is way tighter than I'd like. We are barely saving anything, and I'm not even able to meet my employer's match on my 401k in order to have enough for us to get by. We're living lean, eating beans and rice for dinner a couple times a week, etc. I don't feel as if I signed up for this. We were both working when we got married, and I never thought we'd have to live on just my income. I've tried to talk to her about going back to work, even part-time, to help our financial situation several times, but she just won't hear it. Recently, when I was going through our expenses, I saw that we were signed up for 5 streaming services. I kept Hulu and Netflix because they had more kid-based programming for our son and daughter when she gets a little older, but canceled HBO and Discovery Plus. I kept Shudder because it's cheap and I like horror. When I told my wife about it, she got angry and said I should have talked to her first, that she had shows she was watching on both of the services I'd canceled. I just responded, "Well, get a job and you can pay for them then." She hated that. I think it was fair, but she obviously doesn't see it that way. Am I the jerk? 23 people to serve, 15 minutes before close. I work at a relatively nice restaurant. I don't think Jeff Bezos will be in anytime soon, but it's higher end and everyone has that high expectation of it. We close at 10 p.m. Sunday through Friday, and the hours are posted online and on the door. A table for 23 just came in at 8, no reservation, and requested to all sit together. My manager said, "Fine, come on in. Just wait an hour and 45 minutes first." So, come in at 9:45 p.m., 15 minutes before closing. Nobody told me till 9:20. Fine, parties of 8 or more get gratuity automatically added, so maybe it'll be worth my time, even though I have to split it with the other server. 9:55 rolls around and they come in and sit. I make them order dessert first and put it in to-go containers because the bakery and bar close strictly at 10 p.m., no questions asked. My half of the table eventually orders, save for one guy taking his sweet time. He takes his time and then orders an appetizer. Forget you, dude, but whatever. I'll ring in the $15 appetizer for your meal, even though I'll barely get tipped for it. Nope, we were all out of appetizers, so he reluctantly orders a burger. Rare, ill. Around 11:15, an hour and 15 minutes after we close, they're ready to check out. All separate tabs. 22 checks and a crap ton of cash payments needing change I didn't have. Later, I realize someone didn't pay. Okay, cool. So you wasted my time and you stiffed me. Guess who it was? Rare Burger Guy. I'm mad now. I should have gone home an hour ago, and the table's total was only like $500. So between me and my coworker, we only get like $40 each because they barely ordered anything. I want my $3 tip from this jerk and I want it now. I find my manager, tell her he stiffed me. He's gone. She begins to compensate the check when I notice some movement outside. They're back, all of them. To pay the tab maybe? Nope. To take pictures in front of the restaurant with everyone, including the guy who stiffed me. Cool. I tell my manager and we march outside. Jerk is standing there with his girlfriend, beginning to walk the other way. But no, we run across the street. We start yelling, "One of you guys stiffed us," and point directly at Rare Burger Guy. He owes me $25 for his burger, not even including the tip. He starts walking away like he doesn't hear us, but we're chasing this man, so he gives up. Already embarrassed in front of his girlfriend and 21 other friends. He pulls us aside and hands us a $20 bill. That's all the money he's got on him. At this point, whatever, dude. I'm ready to go home, so we take the 20 and leave. No satisfaction from it. You know, if he was nice, if they didn't come in so late, if he didn't deliberately do it and then stupidly hang around outside, I would have just let my manager compensate it. But you all wasted my time, so we chased him down, and it still didn't make me feel any better. So, Rare Burger eating jerk, forget you. Don't want 60 seconds of adjustment? Okay, enjoy waiting 6 weeks. So I'm a dental assistant for a private practice. Let me just preface this by saying most of our patients are wonderful people,
friendly, happy to see us, respectful of our professional opinions and recommendations, etc. But literally, just like 3 hours ago, I had the biggest Karen in for what should have been a simple appointment. So when we do crowns, or caps as some people know them as, we prep the tooth beforehand and take an impression. Then that impression goes to a lab and the techs down there make the crown. It takes 2 to 3 weeks for them to send the crown back. When we deliver the crown to the patient, the doctor and I try the crown in first to see how it fits. It is very rare that it fits perfectly. We almost always have to make some adjustments, shaving down the crown here and there, checking the space in between the teeth, checking the bite, etc. All of this is standard. The main thing we use is called articulating paper. When the patient bites down on it, we can see heavy blue markings where the bite needs adjusting. The more we adjust, the lighter those marks get, and even stop marking altogether sometimes. Most exchanges with the patient are like this. How's it feel? It's a little high. Okay, we'll adjust that. We use the articulating paper, then grind the crown down a little. How's it feel now? Oh, it feels much better. Okay, cool, let's cement it in. This takes maybe 5 minutes at most. This lady we had tonight was having none of it. Us. How's it feel? Karen.
It's way off.
Us. Okay, we'll adjust it. How's it feel now?
The same.
Us. Really? No change?
The same.
Us. Okay, no biggie. Let's adjust more. We did this maybe for 5 minutes, over and over, and she kept insisting that it was exactly the same. No change. Even though the marks were gone at this point, meaning that her teeth were no longer even touching the crown. At this point, we had a couple options which the doctor presented to her. Doc. Okay, well, I can keep adjusting the crown. The only issue is that if I keep reducing the porcelain on top, the metal underneath might end up showing. Are you okay with that? Karen.
No.
Doc. Okay, well then I need to make a small adjustment to the tooth above this one so that they don't touch. It's very superficial.
No, don't touch my upper teeth.
Doc. We do this all the time, ma'am. It doesn't harm the teeth. We're basically just polishing it.
No, that's a lie. If you guys did it correctly the first time, you wouldn't have to adjust it at all.
Me. Ma'am, we do this for everyone. The lab almost never makes them perfect. We either have to adjust the crown itself or the opposing teeth. Karen.
No, you messed up.
Me. Well, we have to adjust one or the other, so which would you prefer? Do you want metal showing?
No.
Me. So we can polish the opposing tooth?
No.
It'll literally take a few seconds.
No, you're lying. It's going to harm my teeth.
At this point, the doctor suggested getting our office manager to talk to Karen. Our office manager is an awesome lady. She's old, doesn't give a hoot, and is 2 years away from retirement. I told her the situation, and she laughed and said, okay, let's make her wait another month. I don't give a hoot. So she marched right in there and said, okay, ma'am, since you don't want this crown, we'll send it back to the lab and have them redo it. So instead of just waiting the 60 seconds for us to adjust, she now has to wait 3 weeks to come in again. And that's just to re-prep the tooth. Then she has to wait another 3 weeks for the crown to come back from the lab, again. Anyways, thanks for reading. I mostly just wanted to type this out to rant. I've been working as a dental assistant for almost a decade now, and I've never had an exchange like that. It was so bizarre. I straight up think she was either lying to our faces or just crazy. It made 0 sense. Edit. To the people saying she has every right to request the crown to be redone, no duh, that's not my issue. My issue is that she accused us of lying, screamed at us, wouldn't tell us why it felt exactly the same, and didn't want any solutions we offered. I've had many patients request crowns to be redone. Not a problem. Sometimes the color is off, sometimes the fit is really wrong. They just weren't total Karens about it. You can be polite and still get your way.
Karen fakes being pregnant to keep mooching off of me. I'm 20, female, and my brother, who's 24, has been on and off with his girlfriend, who's 27, for a couple of years now. It's been the same song and dance. They're happy for a few weeks, then something small happens, they argue, it gets really nasty, and they make up and are back to being a loving couple. When I learned my brother got kicked out of his apartment and needed a place to stay, I offered him the extra room in my apartment, and my brother agreed to pay rent, help with bills, and pitch in with food. For 3 months now, she's been announcing she's pregnant. She alone will eat a snack box with 50 small bags of chips in a week. I tried to reason with her and get her to cut back, not only from overeating, but she was running us low on food. But she insists she and the baby are healthy and it's just cravings, blah blah blah. Since last month, most of what my parents send to my house, my mom is a couponer, so she bulk shops and gives away what she has too much of. My brother's girlfriend is the first to get into it, and a large portion of it is gone by a few days to a week. From a 24 case of Monster, the energy drink if you're not familiar, 8 will be gone in a week from just her. She eats a crap ton of food too, most of which no pregnant woman should be consuming so much of. And yes, I know all pregnancies are different, but words can't explain how much she eats in one sitting. So today, I had seen her drinking coffee, and after her second cup, I asked her if she should be drinking so much coffee, and she said her doctor told her it was fine and she had no worries. When I suggested she take on a healthier diet for the baby, she just scoffed and walked out. I went and asked my brother if he's been to any of her doctor's appointments or even seen a positive pregnancy test, and he said he hasn't. I confronted her about it, and she said she didn't have to prove anything and started to get defensive. I told her she needed to show a test or some proof of going to the doctor, or she needs to move out as she doesn't help at all. My brother started defending her and changed his answer from not seeing any proof to seeing her pregnancy test. My parents got word of what I said, and my mom says I was in no place to say anything, and everyone's body is different, and I wouldn't know since I've never been pregnant. Am I the jerk? Edit. I did talk to her a while ago about getting a job as well as helping out financially, and she said she'd start and never has. Right, so based on the majority of the comments, I overstepped, yes, but I'm going to go with my gut on this one and give them their 30 days notice and call it a day. I'll for sure update you guys in a month, when they're to be gone, and let you all know, who's interested, what's happened by then. I keep repeating myself. Let me add, my brother knows everything I've said. The excessive caffeine, no ultrasound, etc. No, I was not faking concern by the coffee comment. She drinks 2 cups of coffee a day along with a Monster. That's a ton of caffeine. I sold my home to avoid my neighbors and their kids. Quite a few years ago, I, 32, male, and my partner, 29, female, moved into a stacked unit in a residential complex. We are happily child-free. I started renting the unit from someone I worked with after they had moved out of the same unit. They had cats. We had a cat. We were told that this is perfectly fine, and for some time it was. In 2017, the owner of the unit decided to sell, and I took out a mortgage to buy it. I did this because the unit is great and we liked living here. It's close to work, it's a nice area, and there were no issues worth mentioning. This was the first property I've ever bought. Shortly after this, I get an email informing me that having pets is not allowed and we need to get rid of our cat. Now, besides the fact that this isn't entirely legal, I was not about to get rid of my cat. I attend the next body corporate meeting where I explain that 1, I was told that it was fine, and 2, one of the trustees within the association knows about my cat and had previously approved it. This trustee in question corroborates my point, and we begin to discuss what should be done about pets. A decision is reached where new pets will not be allowed without approval, while current pets can remain until they pass away. However, residents will have to resolve any issues should tensions arrive due to roaming pets. I agree to this. My cat roams a little, but never causes a problem. We also keep her inside most of the time and the entirety of the evening. At this meeting, I decide to join the trustees for our body corporate. I know that I've already put a sour taste in the chairperson's mouth by showing up and arguing my case, but I truly want to help and keep things in order. After all, I now own property that is worth caring about. Side note, the chairperson's son is the caretaker for the residential complex. For about 2 more years, everything is fine. Residents come and go, but we're quite happy. The complex gains a few families with kids, which means things get somewhat noisier. We don't like kids or the noise they create, but hey, kids will be kids, and we can always put on some music for a while. But there is this one girl who likes to screech at an ungodly volume. Oh well, whatever. Fast forward, and it's the start of 2020. Early in this year, we got new neighbors. Units are pretty close to each other in this complex, and there are walkways between them. There's also communal ground all around the floor units, like ours. The same day these new neighbors move in, their toddlers start riding their plastic bikes up and down the walkway between our units, by the window of my office. I go over to the father, introduce myself, welcome the family, and then casually mention that perhaps the kids could use their bikes further away from the units due to noise, closer to the actual play area that's set up for the kids. He nonchalantly agrees. I did not meet the mother this day. At that point, the noise levels are somewhat bothersome, but not unbearable. Lockdown hits my country, and soon we're locked down. My partner and I both lecture for a living, and now we do so from home. Kids aren't going to school and are home all day. The noise levels become incredibly difficult to ignore, especially when toddlers are running up and down and screaming by my window. As a trustee, I mention this issue to the other trustees. The chairperson denies this issue and points out that kids need to play. Don't get me wrong, I understand that kids need to play, but the amount of screaming suggests something other than playing, and do they have to do it by my window while I'm trying to teach? My classes start finding the noise bothersome. The noise becomes worse. My partner is having an even worse time than I am. It's constant noise and constant screaming, almost all of the second half of each day. Sometimes the mornings, but it's every day, even over the weekend. We're dealing with the stress of work and lockdown, and the noise is not helping. We start resorting to calling the security guard when things get too bad, just to get the kids to play in a different area. The kids have formed a group from a variety of different units in the complex. They play together every day, but make immense amounts of noise. Sometimes they run or cycle around our unit, and they don't even wear masks. Over the next few months, things start to escalate. The noise never dies down. We often hear kids being loud inside their own unit. The chairperson doesn't care. The managing body doesn't seem to do anything. It feels as though the noise just increases. We are now calling the security regularly. In the grand scheme of things, this is something I confess to. We did call the security often, probably too often, but it was unbearable and they just wouldn't listen. Eventually, the kids learn to hide when the security guard comes and then continue when he leaves. One day, the mother, who I will call Mother A from now on, who moved in next to us, comes to see me. She's upset that we are repeatedly calling the security. I explained to her that we don't want to do that, but the noise levels are something we can't deal with. Also, we would appreciate it if they could avoid playing around our unit, which is where the noise is the worst. Things change for a few days and then go back to normal. Now, it's important to note that Mother A is gone for huge chunks of the day, sometimes even leaving one kid to take care of the other. Soon, things are noisy again. There seems to be even more kids. While there are many parents in the complex, there's tension between me and Mother A. There's another mother who lives further away from us. I will call her Mother B. Mother B has 2 kids, a boy and a girl. The boy is sometimes loud, but it's really no issue. They're pretty well behaved. The girl is quite lovely. My partner likes to garden, and the girl often comes along to learn about plants and partake in the gardening herself. You need to understand, my partner does not like kids, but she befriended this girl through plants and flowers. Sometimes this girl will come and tell us that the other kids kicked balls into cars or even damaged cars. We didn't do much with this information, but here's the point to keep in mind for later. This girl liked us a bit. The noise gets worse. I finally write up a formal complaint against my neighbor, all while trying to remain as impartial as I can as a trustee. I'm told that we need proof that the kids are playing or riding their bikes around our unit because, wouldn't you guess, Mother A denies it. My partner catches a few seconds of a kid riding their bike around our unit and we send it along. Things go quiet, and a few days later, Mother A comes to see me. She's furious and yells at me for a few minutes straight, accusing me of harassing her kids and telling me that I should just move. I don't get a word in. When she's done yelling, she leaves. Even though the chairperson is stubborn about doing anything, I managed to get approval on sending a notice about noise levels. This is the second notice, but this one is printed and delivered to each unit. The security guard lets me know that when he delivered the note to some of the parents, they crumbled it up and threatened him. Cool. Later in the year, tensions are all over the place. I can't cover every detail, but here are a few. The chairperson keeps butting heads with me on this issue, telling me it's not a problem. We get a new neighbor. She's an old lady who has also started to lodge a complaint about the noise. At the other end of the complex, someone else is complaining about the kids' noise. This goes nowhere because the chairperson refuses to acknowledge that it's an issue. We are doing all we can to keep the noise out, whether it be headphones or always keeping our windows closed. The lockdown means we don't get to hold our annual body corporate meeting. We're still calling security. Mother A wakes us up one morning to yell at us again. She's furious that I told her kid not to chase my cat, which he did. Kids seem to know that they frustrate us and occasionally go out of their way to do so, going as far as pretend running across the road when I drive out of the complex. It's 2021. Early in the year, my partner and I have a fight about moving. I'm not ready to give up yet, but she just wants out. She's wanted out for almost an entire year. The strain on the relationship is difficult to manage. The chairperson visits one evening, noticing how much noise the kids make and how they're all dangerously playing across the driveways as well. The caretaker tells them to stop and writes up a fine for their parents. We also decide that we should fine the parents in the future if they refuse to monitor their kids' behavior. Finally, on the one hand, I think that this is a fairly extreme way to go about it. I've suggested many other possibilities before this which did not resort to fining. On the other hand, I'm relieved that maybe this will get parents to take more responsibility. Boy, was I a fool. Remember Mother B? Well, she's had it apparently. The next day, the trustees get an email with a signed letter. A lot of things are mentioned. I will paraphrase a few of them. All the parents are sick and tired of being complained about. Their kids need to play outside and socialize, but they're getting herded up and down by security guards from complaints. A certain trustee, they make it clear that it's me, is a horrible person. I am, according to Mother B, video recording everyone, spying on people, harassing them and scaring them. Everything short of calling me a stalker, really. I have done none of these things. I've never even pointed my camera at anyone in the complex. Mother B's kids are terrified of us because we're bad people, despite her daughter gardening with my partner on multiple occasions. I am, according to Mother B, influencing the other trustees to take action against the kids and their parents. Honestly, I wish I could have achieved this. And of course, why am I allowed a cat if it's against the rules? This must be preferential treatment. Remember that meeting about my cat? The rules were never updated to reflect the discussion that took place that evening. Whoops. In fact, a cat enters her unit and has caused something of hers to break. She's pretty sure it's my cat. There's some other stuff, but these are the important points. Almost every parent in the complex has read and signed this letter. Now, I have no proof of this, but I'm pretty sure Mother A had a lot to say in the drafting of this letter. Mother A also thinks that I'm the reason that they're getting fined, so the next day she comes to yell at me again. I can't get a word in, so I decide to visit her later. She isn't there, but the father is there. I explained to him that I was not the one who complained. The caretaker was the one who fined the parents. Not only that, but other residents have also complained about the kids. The father was relaxed and eventually relayed the message. That night, Mother A moves on to the older lady next to us to yell at her too. And if you're wondering why Mother A has yet to be confronted or reprimanded for treating the complex like her own prison ward, don't ask me. I've even written a formal complaint about her behavior too. Now, Mother A is friends with her other neighbor. I will call her Neighbor A. Neighbor A doesn't like us because Mother A doesn't like us. And guess what? Neighbor A is now writing complaints about my cat entering her home and that her daughter is allergic. I find it incredibly strange that we've lived next to each other for years and the issue only pops up now. How odd. The chairperson and caretaker contact me. I have to control my cat because it bothers the other units. I'm somewhat baffled. It took almost an entire year to take action against parents, but one complaint about my cat and I need to get my act together. At this point, there's little more to do. Mother B won't stand down. Mother A is ready to kick down the door of anyone who dares complain about her horrible kids. The old lady next to me wants to get out of her contract so that she can move. Kids continue to be noisy. Fines go nowhere. We make the decision. We have to move. Not only is the noise not changing, the parents think I'm a stalker, and now they make up a large portion of complex residents. And now my cat is being dragged into complaints, and who knows if someone might try to hurt her. I can't keep her in 24/7 either. We've tried from the moment we got her, and it drives her insane and unhappy. So I put the place on the market. It gets picked up by a buyer. The chairperson and caretaker set up a meeting with me, and only me. They aren't happy, and I'm putting them in a bad position by having my cat and constantly pushing the issue with the kids. I explain how I feel about it and voice my own frustrations. They don't acknowledge the discussion we had about pets all those years ago, and it's clear they won't defend me on this. Fine. I then inform them that I'm out anyway. The place is sold and I'm leaving. I'm sure it's what they wanted anyway, so that settles the matter. A few months on, and I'm busy packing. I've bought a new home and renovated parts of it. We move in this Saturday, and every day kids are screaming outside of my unit. You're hourly. Your day starts at 8 and ends at 5. So I used to work for a large team with like 25 staffers, 6 supervisors, a manager, and a director. The manager was a blonde lady in her mid-30s whose only discernible qualification was being attractive and in her 30s. She was like Regina George, except she signed your paycheck, so we put up with it. The team was going through a transition from having old-timers retire and hiring new staff. So for like the first year and a half, I don't think we ever left on time. OT was pretty much a given. But towards the end of our second year, my buddy and I, we started the same day, noticed things are slowing down. We're catching up on the workloads and people are starting to leave on time. One day we finish all of our work, help out a few other teammates finish their work, and get pulled into an office with a director to get some praise and recognition. On cloud 9, we get back to our desks, pack up, and leave a few minutes early, feeling good about a solid day's work. We got written up. The next day, we got chewed out by the manager. She reminded us of our start and end time.
You're hourly, and your shift starts at 8 and ends at 9. You can't leave early just because you feel like it.
We received a lengthy diatribe about being a team player and staying until the work is done, blah blah blah. It was unfortunate timing because the reason the director had pulled us into a meeting the day before was to congratulate us on our hard work. Turns out that management had done some metrics testing and figured out that 2 people on the team of 25 individual contributors were doing about 12% of the total work done each. So the 2 of us were doing a quarter of the work of the entire team. Our manager had not yet been privy to that knowledge. Armed with the knowledge that everyone was liking their work to last the full day, we decided that for the next month, we would both work at the pace of everyone else. But darn it, we would be at our desks at 8 and we wouldn't leave till 5. Most days we were done about an hour early and then twiddled our thumbs looking at blank screens from about 4:30 until 5. We even stayed a few minutes past 5. About 3 weeks in, our manager even commends us on our hard work. About 2 weeks later, that month's metrics results came in and numbers were down. Turns out, we were now doing about the same as everyone else, and the team was not hitting its figures. Our manager had to have known what we were doing, but what was she going to say?
They aren't picking up everyone else's slack anymore.
So she tries to do us over in another way. I was a few minutes late one day. She wrote me up. Mind you, some of her supervisors would show up late on a daily basis, but I'm an Edmond Dantes kind of guy. I'm cool with that long-haul revenge. I started to show up early and would sit at my desk with the computer screen still locked until exactly 8 a.m. And this went on for about a week before the director had had enough and came up to my desk and asked me what the heck I was doing. I explained that my manager wrote me up for leaving a few minutes earlier and wrote me up for being a few minutes late, so I'm just making sure I'm never late, as she explained to me that I am hourly and my shift starts at 8. I don't know if he thought the offices were soundproof or just didn't care, but he went off on her, and it sounded like we were listening to Beethoven's Ninth, played by the Vienna Philharmonic. Am I the jerk for snapping and leaving my sushi party? I, 25, female, love cooking and having people coming over to eat my meals. However, there's one dish that's always resisted to me: sushi. I could never get it right. And I don't mean like crappy supermarket sushi, I mean restaurant level. This summer, I finally got it and invited family over for a sushi party. Most of my family had never tried sushi before. I asked them to try it, and I'd make other Japanese food anyway too. Almost everyone agreed and was eager to try it. Cousin, female 25, doesn't eat fish, and sister-in-law 27 doesn't like anything but pizza, meat, and fries. I told cousin I'd include fish-free sushi and other options and make sister-in-law some meat dishes too. They insisted on just having pizza, a barbecue, or something else. I told them sorry, but reason of the family dinner was so they could try my sushi. We could make something different next time. They suggested to bring fries and other non-themed food themselves, and I politely said no. It would be all food made by me. I made a huge platter of sushi with and without fish, 3 types of stuffed pancakes, edamame, salted soybeans, marinated eggplant, chicken, and teriyaki sauce. They all knew the menu in advance. It was a success. Some people didn't like some dishes, but that was okay. However, sister-in-law and cousin kept complaining. Sister-in-law kept cleaning the teriyaki sauce from the chicken and complaining that I couldn't have made at least some fries. Cousin said that she couldn't stand the smell of raw fish, didn't smell at all, and that the nori tasted like fish. There were nori-free options. I ignored them until cousin made a joke about all of us getting anisaki, and sister-in-law followed along telling us to eat more wasabi to get the worm. I snapped at them and asked them why the heck they had agreed to come. They knew the menu, and I had been cooking the whole day and prepping the day before. Mom and my brother told me to take it easy. Uncle backed me up and just said to eat what they like and leave the rest. They complained until I had enough and left and cried out of anger. My boyfriend came with me and we returned to clean when they had all left. Mom, brother, and aunt think I overreacted. Uncle and boyfriend think they were being rude. My dad thinks I should have hidden wasabi in their food to keep them busy drinking water. Am I the jerk?
Karen loses it at Build-A-Bear. A while ago, I posted a story about my first Karen encounter at Build-A-Bear. For those of you who have never seen or been to a Build-A-Bear, it's the most awesome store in any mall. You pick out an unstuffed friend, fill it up, add extras like a scent or a sound, pick out clothing, name it, and take it home. Now, Build-A-Bear has a ton of licensed products, including The Nightmare Before Christmas. Every year around Halloween, people ask us if we have Jack Skellington or Sally because those are the two bears that get sent to stores. Another thing to note, since lockdown, inventory for our store and all the stores has been weird. Normally, we'd get a truck every single week, but with what's been going on, our schedule has been spotty. Now, when we get our Nightmare Before Christmas items, I notice something. I can't find Sally's dress. In fact, none of us can. Then we realize they didn't send us any of Sally's dresses. We call other stores, the same thing. No one in our area has Sally's dress. This isn't usually an issue because kids will dress up their bears in whatever. One kid got a bright pink unicorn and dressed it up as Darth Vader, so Sally doesn't have to have her dress. Well, according to Karen, she had to. It's the weekend, so we were fairly busy. This family comes in with a mom, 2 grandmas, and 2 kids. As usual, I think everything is fine until the girl wants Sally. My coworker, we'll call her Ava, is helping them when Karen asks about Sally's dress. Ava explains to her that we don't have Sally's dress in stock, nor do any of the other stores have it. And that is when Karen went from polite to just plain rude. Karen asks Ava why we don't have the dress, and again, Ava explains. Karen still doesn't understand why we didn't have the dress and starts demanding we try to get it for her. Ava, bless her soul, brings Karen over to the computer to show her why we can't just buy the dress. I'm on stuffing duty, and one of the kids, a boy who I'll call Thing 1, wants Jack. Again, I think the kid is fine until I realize he doesn't understand the concept of staying in line or going in order. To keep things simple, Build-A-Bear has an order. You pick out your friend, we ask if you want a sound, then you stuff. The reason for this is that the sound has to go into the bear before we stuff him. Now, I do remember one of my coworkers asking Thing 1 if he wanted a sound. The sound wasn't in the bear, so I assumed his parents said no. But then he mentions he wants a sound, so I have to get up, get Jack's sound, and then start again. While I'm doing this, the kid is running back and forth to his mom. This kid is like 6 or 7. He should know better than to run in a store, but whatever. Jack is stuffed, so I give it to the boy to hug. Then I tell him about the hearts. All friends get a felt heart, but you can get special hearts that beat like a real one. Thing 1 squeezes the special heart and says he wants that one. He begs the 2 grandmas and then runs over to his mom again. Now, had he been the only customer in the store, it'd be fine, but we have a fairly big line, and he was making the process longer. Thankfully, Thing 1 comes back and Karen vetoed the heart, so I finish up the bear. Story over, right? Nope. Karen is furious that we don't have Sally's dress. Keep in mind, Ava has explained to her many times that we cannot order the dress because it's part of the bundle. Karen apparently doesn't care. For the rest of her visit, she keeps making snide comments about the dress.
Why don't they have it? It shouldn't be that hard. I wish this store had the dress.
Blah, blah, blah. Then, when she comes over with her daughter, Thing 2, they hold up the line even more because they did the same thing Thing 1 did with the sound. And once again, Karen keeps making snide comments about the dress, saying how ridiculous it is that we don't have the dress. Not only was she making these comments, but she didn't smile once as I performed the heart ceremony and continued to talk about the dress throughout the store. When she left, we said, "Have a good day." She replied with,
I doubt it.
Karen, please never come back to my Build-A-Bear, and I kinda hope you never find Sally's dress. Have you ever been to Build-A-Bear? If so, what kind of bear did you make? Please let us know.
I want a matching Mr. Reddit and Karen bear.
That's a really good idea. We should get in touch with them about that.
The day I lit an ambulance on fire. Several years ago, I was working as an EMT for a small private ambulance company which contracted primarily as a transportation service. The ambulance company employed a pair of mechanics that did regular maintenance on each unit and fixed problems when they came up. The company's CEO was pretty stingy when it came to money, so the rigs were old and a lot of the mechanics' spare time went towards restoring the Impala owned by the CEO's son. I wasn't well liked by the owners and management for one reason or another, but I suspect it's because I frequently spoke my mind. This means that I was tasked with the worst trucks on the worst shifts. One day, my partner and I were dispatched to a scheduled patient transfer from a long-term rehabilitation facility to their home. On our way to the facility, our ambulance overheated and we were forced to pull over. Dispatch was notified and we were told to let them know when the truck cooled so we could get back to work. An hour later, the truck was still hotter than I'd like, and I let dispatch know that we needed a new unit. Their solution was to have us drive back and swap our gear into a fresh unit to finish our shift. We would need to drive across town to get back to dispatch, so I let them know that it would take a while as we'd need to pull over every time the engine overheated. Little else was discussed and we started back. I figured I'd stick to the smaller side roads and take my time avoiding the freeways for the safety of ourselves and other drivers sharing the road. I should also mention that every ambulance has a GPS reporting system that reports all of our telemetry, so we're tracked every moment of every day. The moment we pass the first entrance to the freeway, the dispatch manager, we'll call her Mary, calls us on the radio and angrily asks us to explain why we're not following instructions. I opted to give her a phone call to settle this and not have a long drawn-out discussion on the public airwaves. Mary accuses my partner and I of wasting time and milking the situation so we wouldn't have to take our share of calls. Mary goes on saying that our intentions were obvious since we're not taking the freeway, and as such, when we got back to dispatch, we would be dismissed for the remainder of the day without pay, and they would investigate to see if further disciplinary actions would be needed. I tried to let her know that driving on the freeway was unsafe and I would have to stop more frequently, but she wouldn't hear it and told me to get back as fast as possible. No more delays. Cue malicious compliance. Our patient monitoring equipment is incredibly expensive, and management has stated in the past that if we break it, we're on the hook to replace it. So I tell my partner to pack it all up and put it just inside the side door because I wasn't sure what would happen, but chances were good that we'd need to grab it quickly and make a run for it. So, as directed, we turn around and head back to the freeway entrance at full speed. I think we made it to the end of the freeway merging lane when the temperature gauge started to redline and we had another 12 miles to go. The further I drove, the hotter the engine got and it started to produce white smoke. Lightly at first, then heavier as we approached the big hill just before our freeway exit. Several cars were passing us and honking their horns to alert us of our peril, but there was no stopping this train. We were filling up the lanes behind us with smoke and the smell was wretched, but the ambulance was still running. As we made it to the top of the hill, the engine cut off and we lost all power. Smoke was pouring out of the sides of the hood, but my vision wasn't compromised, so I coasted it over to the shoulder and got it as far off the road as I could safely manage to. Once I threw it into park, flames erupted from the engine. I told my partner to get as much equipment evacuated as she could and I grabbed the fire extinguisher. As I'm trying to put out the fire, my partner is on the phone, letting dispatch know that we were forced to stop because our ambulance was on its way to a fiery death. I guess at this point, our situation had received enough attention that someone had called 911 and the fire department was dispatched, but they pulled up on the opposite side of the freeway watching to make sure that things didn't spiral out of control. We were sure to let dispatch know that the fire department had also arrived. Shortly after our call, the CEO's son showed up in his Impala to pick up the equipment, as well as myself and my partner. He was on the phone trying to get a flatbed tow truck out as fast as possible so his smoking ambulance could be removed from the public view as quickly as possible. The unit was picked up and towed back to the garage, all while the fire department sat and watched. My partner and I were still sent home for the rest of the day. I celebrated the early start to my weekend with a few drinks and nothing else ever came of it. That unit was retired and never saw service after that, but the mechanics said they owed me a beer, I guess because I brought the end to their worst rig in their fleet and they no longer needed to provide upkeep on it.
I told my ex to give me her house or go homeless. I, 36 male, have one kid, Melissa, who is 14, with my ex, Jane, who's 39. We were together for about a year when she got pregnant and expected me to marry her because of it. While I did agree that it would be best for us to move in together, I never said that I would marry her, and she didn't tell me that she expected me to propose until her final month of pregnancy, and she yelled at me for not proposing sooner. Due to the lack of communication and mass assumptions, I set the record straight and said that I wouldn't marry a woman that I've only known for less than 2 years just because she was having my baby. Cue the flying monkeys that were her parents, friends, etc., saying that I needed to take responsibility and make an honest woman out of her. I countered that if getting married, especially before the baby was born, was so important to her, then she should have picked a different guy. I also pointed out that I was taking responsibility when I moved in, agreed to pay all the bills because Jane didn't want to work while pregnant, attended the majority of doctor's appointments, all the birthing classes, and built the nursery. Jane was so mad that she stormed out and didn't speak to me until after she'd given birth. That ticked me off, and I demanded a DNA test before signing the birth certificate, and she was so bitter that I wouldn't marry her. By the time Melissa was 5, I had already taken Jane to court 7 times about custody and visitation. Things got slightly better after Jane started dating again because I would nonchalantly imply that she was still in love with me, and her boyfriend didn't respond well to that. She backed off and wouldn't fight me on my scheduled time. Eventually, the guy gave her a ring, but by then, Melissa was enough to be vocal about wanting to spend time with me. While I am glad that Jane found a new guy, this man wasn't exactly a prize and always wanted something for nothing. He wanted to be his own man and own a business, and that inherently wasn't bad, but he just was bad at it. When the bank wouldn't give him a loan for his next business venture, he convinced Jane to take a mortgage on her house, and it failed. Jane called me, claiming to need more money for our daughter's expenses, and when I asked her for a detailed report, she got upset and tried to guilt trip me. She said that she would take me to court, but since she had already gotten an increase 3 months ago, I knew it would be denied. That's when Jane confessed to me about the mortgage, and that if I didn't help, Melissa would lose her home. I countered, saying that so long as I had a roof, Melissa would never be homeless. Cue the flying monkeys again. Then I told her that I would help with the loan payments after she signed over the house to me. I made this offer knowing that she wouldn't accept it, but prepared to do it because I can say that I tried to help, and so that our daughter wouldn't be in danger of losing her home because of her mom's stupid choices again. Am I the jerk? ETA. Because of word count, I didn't initially put this in, but just to be clear. 1. My ex made dumb choices and wants me to bail her out without getting anything in return, just because I can, and resent her for trying to use our daughter. 2. As stated in the post, my daughter can just live with me if her mom loses the house. I would never leave my own kid homeless. Have no idea where you got that. 3. Yes, the house would be completely in my name, and I would sign it over to my daughter once the mortgage is paid off and she's of age. This is being done so her mom can't ransom the house anymore. 4. Yes, technically my ex would become my tenant if she agreed, and I would also make her sign an agreement or evict her. 5. After years of manipulation and scheming, I am indifferent to the idea of my ex suffering. 6. Me saying that she still had feelings for me was, admittedly, a tactic to get her boyfriend turned husband to get her to back off because of the constant hassle she gave me just to spend time with my daughter and maintain my legal rights as a parent. Going through the courts is expensive and takes up a lot of time. This was not about ego. Entitled sister wants me to provide for her and her baby. So I, 27 female, moved to the US almost 7 years ago. I have 2 half-sisters from my father's side, all from different women. We used to be very close, and despite both of them being illegitimate, I shared with them part of what little inheritance I got from my grandparents. They never recognized them and left them with nothing. 2 years ago, my sisters also moved to the US. My middle sister, 28, let's call her Mary, got a company to host her with a work visa. The eldest, who's 30, Karen, not her real name, got a student visa and moved in with me since I was already working and earning a good salary. The arrangement was that I would pay bills, she would get a job at the university since she's not allowed to work outside, and that was her spending money. I would cover all bills and food. The only thing I asked was to help with some minor chores. I have a dog and a cat, and I told her she had no responsibility while she had work and school. It was fine, since I work from home and I have a step family that helped me maintain my home, mostly because I'm the free babysitter for them. Pretty sweet deal for a student, right? Well, apparently that wasn't enough. While she was in school, Karen met Ken. I knew Ken from the time I went to university. He's a creep, but I thought he was harmless. Karen was head over heels for him. I warned her Ken had a bad reputation at the university, but she didn't care. She's a big girl, so I let it be, with the only condition that Ken was not allowed in my place. Lockdown hits, and my hours were cut. Karen's school goes on pause, and she loses her campus job. Because of all of this, we moved into a small apartment. I took a second job and did some freelance on the side. Needless to say, I had no personal life. I am dating someone, but he was also swamped with work and bills, so we barely met each other. During this time, Karen and Ken apparently got closer, and he began to appear in the apartment. Karen was not part of my lease, but my landlord was very understanding. Ken began making really inappropriate comments about me. I am not a beauty queen. I just look a bit exotic, as Ken put it. I'm mixed and from the Caribbean, so I have a bit of everything, and somehow it all shows. Karen looks more like our father. He was of European descent. In all honesty, Karen is more attractive. I only look foreign in this little intermountain region city. Ken would go out of his way to touch me and was just invasive. I managed to just keep in my room while he was around or use the excuse that my pets needed a walk. I didn't know exactly why, but Karen kept pushing for me to spend time on my own with Ken.
It would be good for you to bond with your future brother-in-law.
They had only been dating 7 months at this point. Whatever, I didn't care. I found excuses to avoid it. November 2020, I got a better position at my main career job, so I was able to quit my second job and have more me time. I reconnected with friends, and one of them asked me if I was okay. I asked why, and he told me Ken had been saying he was very close to getting me for personal time. I was not okay with that idea, and I very loudly said I would rather be hit by a train than doing anything with Ken. Since I'm in a small city in the Intermountain region, the kind that most people in the same area know each other, a lot of people had text messages or creepy stories to tell me. That was it for me. I went home and demanded an explanation. They didn't deny it. Ken even said Karen had said it was fine and I was doing them a solid as her sister, since he really had a thing for me. I told them both they were disgusting and that Ken had to leave or I would be calling the cops. Ken left with some insults sent my way, and Karen began telling me she didn't see the problem since my partner and I were on a break. We were not. I told her I was not for her to sell around like property and that she had 2 weeks to find a place for her own. I was done with her. I called all my relatives, sent them copies of the text messages I was given, and no one in our family wanted anything to do with Karen. She moved in with Ken a few days later. It took me some effort, but I was able to get a restraining order for Ken. Couldn't get one for Karen. Still, they disappeared from my radar, except for a few encounters, which were easily resolved with showing I was about to call 911. And then today happened, and I had to hold back my laughter. Mary had kept tabs on Karen, since sisters and all, and she messaged me with a notice. Hey, Karen just called me. She's pregnant and Ken kicked her out. I just stared for a few minutes and responded, oh, that's sad. Mary knew and supports that I don't care or have any intentions to help. Karen used Mary's phone to call me. She begged me to help since Mary is only letting her stay for a week before she moves to another state. Said that she missed her little sister and had no one else to go to. That she knows I have family health insurance. I pay for private health insurance for 2 relatives that are in hard times and have health conditions, and that I should do something like that for her pregnancy bills. This baby is a blessing and I should want to help her raise it, meaning I pay for everything. I let her pour her heart out for a good 5 to 7 minutes, then said, nope. I ended the call. She tried calling again for a while, then stopped when I got a text message from Mary saying she had left her phone on the counter and she was sorry for the spamming. Most of my family agrees with me, even Karen's mom. The only one that disapproves is Karen's aunt. She's not my aunt, but I called her aunt anyways since I've known her for so many years. She's been putting pressure on me most of the day. She only stopped when I told her one more message and I would show her text messages to my stepfather, who is her landlord. I feel bad for the baby to a point, but this is one of those moments that all I can think is this is not my circus and these are not my monkeys. Edit 1. Someone mentioned the region inconsistency. I never looked into it since I didn't really care, but where I live, I heard Midwest and Northwest interchangeably. As far as I was concerned, it was the same thing. We don't have that type of region in my country. So I decided to Google while at work and found out neither is right. I live in the Intermountain region. Thanks, random stranger, for making me check on the messy regional system. Not even Google agrees on it. Also, a small explanation of my grandparents. They were very old traditionalists. By the end of their lives, they didn't have much to give, so they chose to give it to the legal grandchildren. My father had many kids. I might not even know all of them. Grandparents were just tired of every other year having a new grandchild appear, and in some cases, a moocher mother attached. Last, Karen's visa. She had an extension since lockdown, but that is over. She's overstaying her visa. This is very common. I have relatives that do it. I don't agree, but I also had one foot in since my stepfather is American. Service dog and the zoo. This happened over 5 years ago, but I was reminded of it when my oldest was going through pictures. In hindsight, going to the zoo with a service dog was not one of my best ideas, but my kids were still at the age where they liked it. Plus, my friend had her kids for the summer. Spoiler, no one tried to steal my dog. After getting tickets, I'm asked to go to the office so they can notify zoo security that there's a service dog in the zoo and to let me know what areas of the zoo I cannot go in. Basically, I couldn't go into any of the areas where the animals roam freely. Completely understandable. I finish up with the office. We start walking around, and one of the first big cats enclosures we see is the jaguar. So beautiful, but I hate how small the enclosure is. I hate the zoo personally. And this is when the entitled parents start. Usually during the day, most of the animals are laying down, but today I brought a dog into the zoo. The jaguar caught the scent of my dog and became extremely restless. The way the enclosure was built, only a chain link fence and 3 feet separated us. My dog was just sitting next to me with this beautiful and deadly animal staring at us. Because the jaguar was active and close to the fence, people kept coming. Very quickly, I was trapped between the fence and a crowd. I have my dog for mobility and anxiety issues. Getting out of that crowd was difficult. Thankfully, my friend's fiance saw me and pulled me out of there. When my friends saw the crowd building, they grabbed my kids and pulled them away. So that was the jaguar exhibit. Thankfully, the next enclosure was one that I couldn't go in, so I got to sit down for a bit. During this, I had a mom with 2 kids, young but I don't know how old, demand I go back to the jaguar so her kids could see him up close. I told her no, not happening. She did the whole whining and yelling thing, but at that point, my kids and friends showed up, told her no again and left. She started following us. But it's a zoo. Can't tell her where she can't walk as long as she isn't bothering us. Next big enclosure we get to is the wild dogs. This enclosure has viewing glass instead of chain link fencing. They perk up when they catch my dog's scent as well. And again, we draw a crowd. This time I have a lot of kids pushed up to the front. Guess what? The kids have short attention spans. They saw the wild dogs and then saw my dog. They were more interested in my dog. That exhibit was heck getting out of, as I didn't want to hurt any of them. So now, instead of just one annoying mother dragging her kids behind us, we have multiple entitled parents with kids. Every enclosure we see, this crowd would push to get to the front. If I left before one of them got to see the animal, they would demand I go back. Each enclosure, I was losing my grip on my temper. My friends saw this and did their best to try to keep me calm. We're at the tiger exhibit next, and now I'm wondering if the zoo even feeds the animals. The tiger is pacing and staring and gauging distance, trying to get to us. After about a minute of that, I couldn't stay there anymore. I was terrified the tiger would try to take the risk and jump. But again, the dang crowd. Now I'd had enough. I ended up telling the crowd to back up and get away from me. These parents got mad at me for the words I used in front of their kids. How could you? Now, my revenge. Monkeys do not like dogs at all. They will go nuts if you go near their enclosure. Well, I had this lovely crowd of entitled parents who refused to leave us alone, and we are coming up on some of the monkeys. Once the rest of the crowd caught up, I started going towards the monkey exhibit. My friends took my kids around the enclosure in case I didn't get out fast enough. As soon as I got close, the monkeys started yelling and jumping. The crowd was so excited, the monkeys never jump around. I got to the beginning of the exhibit and rushed through as fast as I could. Limited mobility sucks, but it was the crowd that had feces thrown at them. Afterwards, I was sitting with my kids and friends when one of the women comes up to me yelling about how she never had monkeys throw this at her before, and it's all my fault. Her screaming drew the attention of one of the zoo security. After the woman started yelling at him about how awful I was and how she had monkey crap thrown in her hair, that it's my fault. He asked me what she meant. I told him about how no matter where we went in the zoo, a crowd followed us and made the whole visit miserable. The woman started yelling that it's my fault for bringing a dog to the zoo, and if I didn't want the attention, then I should have stayed at home. At that point, we were done with the zoo and decided to go get something to eat. This is how I learned that taking a service dog to the zoo is a bad idea. Thankfully, my kids are old enough that if they want to go to the zoo, they can go by themselves. Me and my boy prefer places that have AC. Am I the jerk for saying that my boyfriend had a lifetime commitment to his ex since they are co-parents? My boyfriend used to be married to Jennifer, and they have twins. I had never dated a father before, so I really didn't know what to expect. Anyway, my boyfriend and Jennifer are co-parents and split the parenting duties pretty equally. They see each other a lot and communicate a lot about their sons. I realized after we were together for a year that things really weren't working for me. I knew my boyfriend had a commitment from before me to being a father, and that would be a lifelong commitment. I felt okay with that and felt like that made him a good dad and a good man. I didn't realize that also meant he'd have what I see to be a lifelong commitment to Jennifer. To co-parent, well, they have to communicate often, see each other often, work through disagreements or stressors respectfully, share holidays, stay in touch with each other's families, etc. I felt like those were things I respected him for doing, but I also didn't feel like were what I wanted in a partner. I want a partner who commits to me alone and no other woman, and I want to feel like life decisions are made between me and my partner primarily, not between my partner and his co-parent primarily. I felt like the main relationship and the dynamic was my partner and Jennifer. So I talked to him after about a year, saying that I respected his commitment to his family a lot, but I didn't feel like the relationship was working for me because I couldn't make a life with someone who already had a lifetime commitment with another woman. My boyfriend was really upset with me for saying he had a lifetime commitment to Jennifer, saying they were divorced. I said maybe not a marriage commitment, but they definitely have a lifetime commitment to raising their kids together. They will always be the parents of two boys who will be in their lives, hopefully for their whole lives. And with that family, they would always have a commitment to their family and to each other. And that I was happy they could do that for their kids' sake, and I respect it, but it wasn't for me. My boyfriend was really angry, saying he never wanted to commit to Jennifer. She pressured him into marriage since she got pregnant young, and she isn't his girlfriend or anything, but the parent of his kids to him, and it's offensive to tell him that he has a lifelong commitment to her. This is where I probably messed up, but I said, "But you do, whether you like it or not. You have a family together." He said that he needed some time alone and left for a few days. I feel conflicted. I honestly think that he does have a commitment to Jennifer, and I understand and respect that. But I also know he's upset to hear that, and to hear that's the reason I don't see a relationship working long term. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend he has a commitment to the mother of his kids? Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not? Please let us know.
I don't think she's a jerk at all, but the story still hit me right in the feels. Still a better love story than Twilight.
Am I the jerk for ruining my husband's hiking trip? I'm 27, female, and my husband, who's 28, and his 4 friends, all males between the ages of 27 and 32, have a yearly hiking trip they take for 2 weeks. They've done it for years, and it's fun for me because I really enjoy being alone, and it's fun for my husband because he gets to hang out with his friends. However, within the past couple of years, the camping trip has always ended in a fight or an argument that kind of ruined the whole thing, but they were hopeful for this year. I will preface this with saying I do not like these friends. These friends are ones he's had since elementary school, and they just have formed a lifelong bond even if they don't like each other anymore. A month before our wedding, 3 of them decided to take a random trip to Cabo without checking the dates, and the 4th one was having a baby. Obviously, we didn't plan him in the wedding party because of that, but my husband only had 1 groomsman and no support on his wedding day. They do that kind of crap all the time, where my husband is always kind of left in the dust. They also really don't like me because I helped my husband get sober when we started dating, and they don't like that I took away their real friend. So on these trips, I always just ask that my husband call or text me when they're winding down at the day, so I know he's alive and well. It doesn't have to be long, it could just be a quick text, but he always calls because, well, I'm his wife and he likes me. These calls never ever last more than 10 minutes, ever. I usually make him hang up to go have fun. His friends apparently hate that he calls me or even texts me on this trip at the end of the night. This came to a point where they hid his phone from him for 2 days just so he wouldn't call me. I thought that something had happened to him and messaged their respective partners, whom I'm actually pretty decent friends with, about if they had heard from them. One girlfriend called and screamed at boyfriend to give him his phone back. When they finally did, my husband called me in near tears, saying that the trip so far had just been a nightmare and he just wanted to come home. He told me they used the trip as an intervention to convince him to divorce me because I am too needy and demand too much from him. Both of those things are severely untrue. I'm not perfect, but I'm certainly not those things. Anyway, this set me off and I messaged their partners about this. I was really upset and wanted to understand what made them do that. Well, apparently I started a whole storm of them all calling their boyfriends and going off on them for me. I didn't ask them to do it, and I felt bad because I just needed to vent. This made the trip even worse for my husband because they just kept calling me names. Since being home, my husband is not mad at me at all and understands why I did what I did. He knows they're in the wrong, but now I know I've ruined a relationship he's had for years because I just didn't keep it to myself, and I also ruined a 2-week trip for him. Am I the jerk? Edit. For clarification purposes, I wanted to emphasize that I'm not asking if I'm the jerk for wanting a text or a short phone call to make sure he's alive. I feel 100% justified in that, and I'm not asking for a judgment call here. I'm asking if I was the jerk for contacting their girlfriends. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the friends? Please let us know.
I really hope you're able to keep your husband away from those bozos. Just because you've known someone since you were kids doesn't mean they're your friend.
Entitled neighbor caught by his own police call. So a few years back, I, 20 male, had a small 2-room flat in a very old building in which you could hear everything. My bedroom was right next to the wall of my neighbor's, 27 male, flat. He was a stupid lunatic who always played video games until 4 or 5 a.m. And he had some kind of problem with losing in MP. So every time he would lose, he would start screaming, throwing things around and punching the wall, waking me up almost every night. At the time, I was doing 2 jobs and needed every second of sleep I could get. I tried talking to him on several occasions, but nothing helped. One time, when I was out for work, I even let my sound system run a mix of artillery and machine gun barrages just to show him how annoying this stuff could be. But as entitled people are, it didn't do any good. Fast forward a few months, and nothing improved, and I was getting crazy about this. One Saturday night, I had a little poker game running in my flat with a few friends, and my neighbor was having one of his usual tantrums. Since I had guests and they didn't like it, we turned up the music. Everybody listened to something different, so there was a good mix of metal, techno, industrial. My neighbor was furious at some point and apparently called the police to file a noise complaint. Luckily, when they pulled up, one of my guys saw them driving up as he was out for a quick cigarette. Now comes the fun. We turned the music down before they came up, so when they rang the doorbell and I opened, they could not hear anything too noisy, just a few guys having some beer and a little poker game. They told us there was a noise complaint from a neighbor saying it was too loud and that this was something constant. We told them we've been like this for hours. Then I had a genius idea. I asked them if my neighbor called them, which of course they couldn't answer, but I knew what was what. So I invited the 2 cops in and told them I'd show them what real noise disturbance looked like. I led them to my bedroom where one could still hear my neighbor throwing tantrums, and I told the cops the whole story. And since they were already here, that I would like to file a noise complaint against him. The cops were shocked at the noise you could hear from the other flat and went directly over to his flat to tell him to shut up and that he would get reprimanded by written letter to keep the noise down and don't call the police for false emergencies. I had a huge laugh as the cops came back to tell me to call them when he did something like this again, because in that case, I would be able to file charges. So, long story short, he thought the police would shut me down. Instead, it was the other way around. I never slept better than that night, and finally I had some peace at home. I hope you enjoyed it.
Am I the jerk for kicking my husband out of our kid's room? I'm 36, female, and my 13-year-old son's birthday was last month. I got him an Xbox that he's been wanting for a very long time. He was able to get it after I saved up for it myself, since my husband used to call this stuff useless and say we shouldn't spend money on it. My husband liked playing with the Xbox very much.
First, he'd play with our son, but now has completely taken over and won't even let our son play with it even for a few hours, not even on the weekends. He's playing most of the time from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m., then sleeps till 12 p.m., spends a few hours visiting gaming stores to buy new games or borrows games from his friends or nephews. Then he sits in the living room and starts yelling and cursing and pretends like he's talking to the other players while he's actually talking to the screen. He wouldn't sit at the table to eat and instead eats in front of the screen. He won't sit with the kids and tells them he's busy whenever they ask him to help with homework. I just sit on the couch feeling like I'm not even there while he yells and curses in front of them. When I told him this has been affecting his work because he'd go to sleep at 6 a.m. and wake up at 12 p.m., he asked me what I wanted him to do. Go to sleep at 6 and go to work at 8? He'd call work to tell them he won't come or get someone else to cover for him, even offer them dinner or money, but never really keeps his promise. I was too embarrassed to talk to anyone about this. He is clearly being obsessed. I had an argument with him when he made me lie to his mom, then found out he was at home when I told her he wasn't. He moved into the kids' room so he could focus on playing. The kids wouldn't even be able to sleep because of him being there late at night. Last night, my daughter came to me wanting to sleep in my room, saying she couldn't sleep because her dad was in their room yelling all night. I was so mad at him, especially after I told him to stop because the kids couldn't sleep because of the noise. He kept saying, "Give me a few minutes," till it was 1:30. I had enough at this point and I unplugged the Xbox and told him he was no longer allowed to do this in the kids' room when the kids needed to sleep so they could concentrate on school. He blew up on me for ruining his game and following him from one room to another and making him miserable. He argued that I have no right to kick him out of his kid's room and called me controlling for how I handled the situation when I've already told him, but he didn't listen. Well, what do you think? Do you agree with OP or her husband? Please let us know.
If it were the new PlayStation, I could understand. But Xbox? Bruh.
Don't drop too many fries? Sure thing. So right now I'm working in fast food at a certain place with square burgers, making fries and nuggets. Now, at said place, it was fine. My coworkers are great, really nice people. They cover me when I clean instead of putting me at the mercy of my managers. Speaking of the managers, they are almost all nice. Notice the almost. It will be important later. Since I'm still in high school and I surprisingly have a life, I'm shocked also. I can only work Saturdays and Sundays, with Saturdays being 5 to 9 and Sundays being a mix between 7 to 3:30 and 8 to 4 respectively. Now, since my football season just ended, I am called in on a Friday. This is before I fully knew the worst manager there. Let's call her Vanessa. So I do what I normally do. Drop the fries, pull them up after the timer goes off, drop them into the fries holder, salt them, and put them in a carton, ready to eat. You're supposed to also use the drop timers, which is supposed to keep track of how long they're sitting there, and after a certain set time, you throw them away. I see next to no one do this, so I assumed I shouldn't do it. Well, Vanessa noticed this and began to chew me out because of it, but in a way that was way extra. This got me a bit upset, but I had no choice but to use them. Now, the reason we don't use them is because it slows things down. You're supposed to drop more fries when the timer says no, but this isn't possible during the lunch or dinner rush without causing major overflow. Now, Vanessa tells me to switch out trash cans, so I let the guy on grill, we'll call him Chad, know to keep an eye on it and to use the timer because Vanessa wanted me to. So I switch them out, and no later than 2 minutes after I'm done, she gets up in my face about not dropping it on the timer. I tried to explain to her why this wouldn't work, but she insisted on it, so I used the timers and slowed down production. The rush died down a bit, and I still used the timers as I didn't want my head chewed yet again for a third time. Nonetheless, Vanessa found a way to scream at me. She told me to drop less fries, idiot. Now I politely told her that she was the one who told me to drop it on said timer. Now, what I said and how I said it didn't show the complete riot going on in my head. I was saying to myself, "Jerk, you just said to drop more." She screams at me to do it anyway. Cue the malicious compliance. So the rush picks back up and I do not drop a single fry. I take box after box from each and every order until there was enough in there for one more large fry. That's when I dropped the amount for another large fry right then. I also followed the left and right basket rule. No basket of fries from the right to go on the left to really stick it to her. Manager tries to chew me out once again, but I informed her that I was just following her orders. She tries to flip the script, saying she never said that and that she was going to write me up for it.
Thankfully, Chad overheard the previous conversations and let her know that yes, she did say that. She tries to put Chad down, telling him to mind his business and threatened him a write-up. Seems like game over for us, right? Except it isn't. Our second savior, the other manager, was working at that point. Let's call him Aaron. Also overheard the conversation and also let her know that she said that. Now she can't threaten a write-up on someone on the same level as herself. So what does she do? Excuses herself and him to the back, where a glorious shouting match had occurred. We all heard the yells and promptly pulled out our phones. We all see Vanessa storm up here, screaming, "Forget you all!" and leaves out the front door in front of a crowd full of people, a 2020 crowd as I like to call them, and put the pedal to the metal on her 2005 Honda Civic, and that was the last of Vanessa. After the fact, we got a new manager that was leagues better than Vanessa, and everything was in balance. And to add salt to her massive wound, I found her recently at another fast food chain where I said to her, "Don't drop too many fries, lady." Speaking of fast food, what's your favorite fast food place? Please let us know.
McDonald's over everything, bruh.
My entitled daughter falsely accused our housemate of stealing, so I made her sleep in the backyard. I'm male, 46, and my daughter, who's 16, is a high school junior. I noticed recently that she's been behaving in a bad manner, constantly commenting on other people's looks, belongings, calling them stuff that isn't cool, and just being insensitive. It's like she lost a filter or something, because usually she's polite. But my wife suspected that our daughter's sudden misbehavior occurred after she started hanging out with the new girls from the school. Basically the mean type, and she's picked up on their behavior. I've sat with my daughter and had many discussions about her behavior and how it's been negatively affecting everyone around her. Our housemate is the person most affected here, and my daughter has chosen her to be her next target for hair, clothes, and etiquette criticism. She has complained about our daughter calling her names like filthy and gross for cleaning certain areas in her house. I took a stand and explicitly told my daughter I'd punish her if she ever said stuff like that to our housemate again. Last week, my daughter had a party to go to. Earlier that day, she called our housemaid filthy, so I grounded her by not letting her go to the party. She threw a fit and called our housemaid a liar, saying that she never called her that. That was the end of it. Days later, my daughter came to me saying she couldn't find her iPhone after looking everywhere. She asked me to call her number, and I did. My wife and I were stunned to discover that the iPhone was ringing inside our housemaid's bag. I had a confrontation with her immediately, and she denied and cried, saying she never touched the phone nor had any idea how it even got there. I noticed my daughter calling her a thief repeatedly, so I told her to stop and go to her room. I checked the indoor camera before continuing the argument and saw my daughter place her iPhone inside our housemaid's bag. I was livid. I apologized to the housemaid and gave her the rest of the day off. I then showed the video to my daughter, and she was absolutely speechless. I said what she did was immoral and straight up offensive to tamper with that poor woman's livelihood over a petty party she couldn't go to. I told her she was grounded and we'll have to spend the night in the backyard. She's a germaphobe. But she cried, begging me not to make her sleep with the dirt, insects, and the hot temperature. I refused to discuss it or I'd make it 2 nights. My wife said I should go easy on her, but I said calling people filthy and accusing them of stealing wasn't okay. In fact, it was the absolute worst. I then went through with my punishment. The reason I chose this punishment was because of the fact that my daughter says she's a germaphobe and uses this as an excuse to insult others' hygiene and appearance. Our backyard has dirt and bugs in it, and this kind of thing gets her uncomfortable, but other than that, the backyard is 100% safe. Question: why doesn't she clean up and do house chores as punishment instead? Because I've already tried this punishment before, and it didn't work because she deliberately stopped eating for days to get out of it and ended up in the emergency department for low blood pressure. What do you think? Is this punishment too harsh or not? Please let us know.
I hope you're able to save her. If she continues this, she'll be like me before you know it.
When I was 16, I bought my first car, then my sister wanted it, and my mother was her usual self about it. When I was a teenager, I was originally saving to buy a scooter to have fun riding around town on. But on my 15th birthday, my dad gave me an engine kit for my bicycle and convinced me to get a learner's permit and keep saving to buy a car instead. Even after moving in with my dad, I continued doing odd jobs and earning money any way I could. But my dad asked his brother, my uncle, to teach me to drive because he worked as a driving instructor for a while in the 90s. We started lessons at a local community college where I drove around the parking lots and circled the campus. Then we went to country roads that few cars frequented. This repeated itself for a while till we finally decided to try cities and highways. We took it slow, 2 days a week, and I slowly got pretty good at it. Right after my 16th birthday rolled around, we went to the DMV to schedule a driving test. I passed on my first try thanks to all the practice I got beforehand. Not long after getting my license, my dad decided it was time I worked part-time for him at his business after school. I was happy because it would make me double the money I was already saving from odd jobs. I started at what was referred to as the bottom rung. I was doing the cleaning around the office, filing paperwork, handing out mail to employees, and just doing any basic task that needed doing. Before I knew it, I doubled down my savings. While I had chosen to live with my father and my sister didn't, Dad still had a room prepared for my sister when she came to visit. For the first few months or so, Sister didn't bother to come visit. But eventually, Dad convinced her to come over 1 day a week on Saturday. And Dad always picked her up, so I wouldn't have to see my mom. Thankfully, she didn't really want to see me either. My sister by this point stopped asking me for money or trying to break into my room since I was living in my dad's house and not my mom's. But she loved to game on the game systems we had at Dad's house. There was a PS2, GameCube, Xbox, and Sister's personal favorite at the time, the Xbox 360. And Dad also had a decent-sized flat-screen TV to play the games on in his den. This was practically a luxury back then, as those TVs were pretty expensive. Sister would pretty much spend all Saturday night playing games in the den and drinking Coke. That's probably the main reason why she even wanted to come visit, since she didn't have an Xbox 360 or a flat-screen TV at Mom's house. Eventually, after just over 6 months of working at my dad's business, he approached me with an offer to find a car I liked. He said if I found a good, reliable used one that was the right price, he'd help me buy it and would put it on his insurance. I was ecstatic. So I started looking at local ads and found a silver '98 Toyota Camry with under 50,000 miles on it for sale. It was in great shape, save for the fact that the rear bumper had been dented and a few of the windows were broken, along with a badly cracked windshield because it was vandalized by some jerk. The seller offered it to me at $3,500 with the damage, but my dad talked him down to $3,000 because of the money it would cost to get it fixed. I bought the car and it went right to a local auto body mechanic my dad was friends with. He went to a junkyard and pulled parts of another Camry of the same model and used them to fix the Camry I'd bought. And when we went to pick up the car, it looked almost brand new because he'd replaced the broken windows, pulled any dents there were, and touched up and shined the paint with a buffer. I was overjoyed and thanked him and my father profusely. I bought the car, but my dad paid for all the repairs. He never told me how much though, but that car was my main ride for the next 10 years if you can believe it. And I eventually sold it to a cousin on my dad's side for his first car. But that's not what you're here to read. When my sister first saw the car in Dad's driveway, she asked whose it was. Sister: "Hey, whose car is this? Is someone else visiting?" Me: "Nope, that's my car." "No way." "Yes way. I just bought it and Dad helped me get it fixed. It runs like new." Then my sister just got really quiet and went back in the house to play more video games. She didn't really speak to me for the rest of the time she was visiting that week. I started driving the car to and from high school, and I got a fair amount of attention for it. Many of my classmates were asking for rides and whatnot, but my ever being a stickler for the rules didn't give any rides because I legally wasn't supposed to for a few months since I was a teen driver. My sister, however, had complained to our mother after going back home about my new car. Somehow, she couldn't process the fact that I'd gotten a car and she didn't, even though she's 3 years younger than me and was only 13 at the time. She started making a stink to our mom about how she wanted a car too, and Mom called me on my cell phone to yell at me for starting this problem. I told her there was no problem. I bought a car with money I earned, and now I'm driving it, and if Sister wants a car too, then she can either work hard and save up like I did, or hope she gets one as a gift. Mom just got mad at me and said it really wasn't fair. I pointed out there really wasn't a fairness issue at all, as Sister wasn't even old enough to get a learner's permit yet, let alone a car. Mom just said I wasn't being supportive of my sister's feelings, and that when she is old enough to drive, I should at least lend her the car when she needs it or give her driving lessons. I bluntly said that wasn't happening, as I bought it with my own money and it would be put in my name when I turned 18. Plus, she couldn't dictate what I'd do with the car because I didn't live with her anymore. and I had no idea what kind of good or bad driver she'd be in a few years. And with her habit of taking my stuff, I wouldn't let her anywhere near my car keys. Mom just angrily huffed, called me a jerk, and hung up on me. I thought that was the end of it, but it wasn't. My sister started visiting less after that. She got mad at me one day just for washing my car outside. The following is paraphrased from what I remember. Sister:
What are you doing?
Me: I'd say it's pretty obvious, but I'm washing my car. Sister:
Yeah, I get that you're doing that, but why bother to do it yourself? I mean, you got money. You can just take it through a car wash.
Me: And where's the fun in that? At least I don't have to spend $10 to run it through a machine if I just take the time to wash it myself every so often.
You're just showing off because you have a car.
Me: Showing off to who? You and I are the only ones here. She rolls her eyes.
Oh, come on. All my friends keep talking about you and your stupid car. It's not even a cool car, just a shiny silver piece of junk you think looks nice, and you won't even give me a ride in it yet.
Because I'm mandated by law not to have any passengers for several months. And it may be just a Camry, but I like it, and I don't really care what you think about that. My sister then, in a fit of anger, picked up some dirt off the ground and chucked it at the side of my car. But I just sprayed the spot with the hose, and it looked like it was never there. So my sister just stomped back in the house and didn't talk to me again. After that, she only came over for one more week again. When she came to visit, she always had a big backpack with her because she'd bring clothes and other stuff in it. She didn't keep many things at Dad's house, but the next morning when she left, she was wearing the same clothes, which was unusual because she never did back then. I later found out the reason for this. Next time I went into the den, the PS2, GameCube, and original Xbox were destroyed, and the flat screen TV had part of its screen smashed. The Xbox 360 was also missing. I then realized she'd smuggled it out in her backpack. The other game systems she had smashed and left what remained of them sitting on the TV stand. I checked the various games for the systems, and Sister had removed a bunch of the discs from the cases and stolen them as well, and she took all of the memory cards too. When I told Dad, he was pretty mad. He called my mom, and she actually said that since I got the car, letting Sis keep the Xbox 360 and the games she stole was the least he could do. Then she smugly said that Sister didn't want to come visit anymore. Dad angrily told her that she better stop sounding so happy about it or he was going to make her pay for all the damages. Mom just snorted and finally allowed him to talk to my sister. My dad was pretty heartbroken Sister had done all that. He had been trying so hard to get her to appreciate him more, but Sister admitted over the phone that she hated him for divorcing Mom. And her taking the Xbox 360 and destroying the TV and other game systems was, as our mother called it, compensation for her pain. Dad could have called his lawyer to sue for more custody rights, but he believed that if she didn't want to be there, he wouldn't force her. From then on, over the next decade, I barely saw either my sister or my mother. Dad didn't bother to try and get the Xbox 360 back. He said that it and the other stuff Sister broke were just things that could be replaced and bought new ones. But I could tell he was really hurt by what Mom and Sister had done. He actually left my sister's room pretty much untouched for the next few years, but she never came back to use it. From the way my sister is now, though, you'd never guess she was the same person. She's extremely ashamed of her actions back then and wishes she could take it all back and apologize to Dad. But she can't since he passed away some time ago. We visited his grave recently and she cried over it. I'm really not sure how to end this story. I don't even have a moral quip or something to say. Moochers parked a trailer against our fence, stole utilities, trespassed, and harassed us. This happened in the mid to late 1980s, so I don't remember all of the details fully. I will do my best to get the details right as well as I can remember. My family moved from the suburbs in California to a rural area in a southern state. We bought a 30-plus acre property with a house for a decent price out in the middle of nowhere. The roads weren't named, the roads weren't paved, no mail delivery, no trash pickup, no city water, no city sewer, etc. We had a landline and electricity. We had a well system set up for water. The system uses our electricity and our setup is old and uses a lot of power. My father was in federal law enforcement and was still trying to find his place and work up a rapport with the local police, so he didn't want to start things off by complaining or ruffling feathers. The area is one of those small town places where Yankees were treated with suspicion, and they considered California Yankee territory. Our home was outside of the city's jurisdiction, and since there were no named roads and the 911 address system had not been set up yet, it was difficult to explain where we were if we needed to call the police. I can't remember exactly how long we'd been there, but I think it had been maybe a month or two. Our house is on a branch out a long winding road, and there's a dead end. Generally, only people who were completely lost would ever make it out here. The road enters straight in through our front gate, and there is a large circular driveway that used to have a 300-year-old oak tree in the middle. The gate is more than 200 feet from our house. The yard was divided into 5 parts at that time. So one day early in the morning in summer, I heard banging at the front door. My room was at the front of the house, but the other 2 bedrooms, including my parents', were at the back of the house. We didn't have a doorbell. I looked out my window and I saw a man at the door holding a very long extension cord extending all the way out beyond my front gate. He was shuffling impatiently and kept banging on the door. I saw him try to open it, but it was locked. I went and got my father and followed him to the door to see what was going on. Dad opened the door and looked out, somewhat annoyed. I think it was a weekend, and he worked 60-plus-hour weeks and needed his sleep. The guy looked a little puzzled and asked about Joe, the previous owner, being there. My father said, "No, he moved." I'm now going to refer to the man as Entitled Man. Entitled Man:
"Oh, well, I need to hook up my extension cord in the house."
Dad: "Excuse me?" Entitled Man:
"Yeah, we need power for our trailer."
Dad looks out and sees a trailer in the fire break parked right up against our fence. Also spots a hose coming from the trailer and hooking up to one of our hose bibs for the front field. "Who are you?" Entitled Man: I can't remember what he said. Dad: "I didn't give you permission to connect to my water and power."
"Oh, it's fine. We do this every summer. Joe said we're always welcome."
Dad: "I'm not Joe. He sold the house to us, and he never said anything about you or any arrangements. I don't know you, and I want you to leave now." Entitled Man argued in vain about why he should get to hook up to our utilities. Dad explained he wasn't comfortable with complete strangers parked against our fence. Dude claimed it was public land so he could park there, which was a lie. It was private property. We later found out it was actually on our property, but the fence was in the wrong place, but it would have been timber company's land. Ultimately, he refused to move his trailer. Dad: "Let me walk you out of the yard." Escorted the man to the front gate, shut it behind him, chained it, then turned off the water at the hose bib, disconnected the hose, rolled it up, and passed it over the fence to Entitled Mom. "I don't want you coming onto our property again. We don't know you." Entitled Man:
"You're not very neighborly. You need to learn about Southern hospitality."
As an aside, I will interject that the reason my dad picked a place out in the woods was to be away from people and have some privacy. I had followed him out and we walked back in. I looked back to see the guy and his wife and his kid glaring at us. We went inside and locked the doors, front and back. We also went through and made sure to lock all of the windows. Later that day, I went to wash my hands in the sink and the water started sputtering and wouldn't come out properly. From the kitchen window, I could hear one of the pumps, the one that fills our cistern, running like crazy. I unlocked the back door and walked out to the shed with the well and cistern and saw that the float lever was down and the pump was trying to refill it. I went back in, locked the door, and went and told my dad that our cistern was low and the water wasn't working. He checked it too and then went out the front door where he could see that Entitled Man's hose was in our yard and hooked back up to our hose bib. He sighed and went back out to the shed and shut off the water to the front yard. We then waited for the cistern to fill enough for us to use it. We figured that Entitled Man would get the message and go away. Nope. Next thing we know, there's a loud, angry banging on our front door. I looked out and then saw Entitled Man all red-faced and seething. I got Dad's attention again and he went to the door with me. Dad unlocks and opens the front door. Entitled Man screams,
"The water isn't working."
Dad sternly: "I noticed. I told you not to connect to our utilities and you did so anyway. You drained our cistern. I also told you to leave and locked my gate. You are trespassing. Leave now."
"You've already left us without power. What are we supposed to do without power?"
"Leave." Dad stepped out and escorted him to the gate again, opened it for him, let him out, closed it behind him and chained it. "You are not welcome here. Do not set foot on my property again." I can't remember if it was that day or the next day. It's been too long and I can't remember how long this lasted, but I think it was a week. But the phone started ringing off the hook and we kept having people ask for Entitled Man or his wife. Now, we had an unlisted phone number. It was unlisted for a reason. We have no idea how they got our number. When these people called, we just told them they had the wrong number. Around afternoon, Entitled Man's wife, we'll call her Karen, came knocking on the door. I saw it was a lady, so I went to the window and asked her what she wanted. She demanded that I open the door to let her use the phone. If she had asked nicely, I might have asked my parents if it was okay to let her in, but she was rude, so I was defensive. I essentially told her to buzz off. She started banging on the window and screaming at me. This got my mom's attention. "Mom, don't you use that kind of language at my house?" Mom doesn't like it when people use words like that. Karen,
I need to use the phone and collect my messages.
Mom, what messages? Karen,
We gave people the number so they can call us here.
Dad, who walked in on the conversation at the window. Who gave you the number? Karen refused to answer, but demanded we give her the messages and let her inside. Mom, we are not your answering service, and I am certainly not letting you inside my house. Now get off of our property and do not come back. Karen angrily shouted about what horrible people we were and how we were going to heck. I snuck outside via the back door and followed her at a distance to make sure she left and chained the gate behind her, and I think I stuck my tongue out at them. At some point, we went into town to visit some elderly friends of ours that had somewhat adopted us when we moved there. We were gone a few hours. When we returned, I got out and unchained the gate so Dad could drive through, then shut the gate and chained it again, then skipped all the way to the house trying to race the vehicle. I was also the remote control for the TV back then. Parents said what station to turn it to, and I would turn the dial. Before we got into the house, we heard some angry shouting. Entitled Man and his wife undid the chain and were storming toward us, screaming and generally cursing at us. Dad, what is your problem? Entitled Man, you locked your doors. Karen,
And your windows. We couldn't get inside.
Mom and Dad, of course we did. Mom, that was the point. We don't want you inside of our house. We don't want you here at all. Entitled Man, you are terrible hosts. Dad, you are not invited here. You are not welcome here. Now leave. Again, he escorted them to the front gate. This time, he had a shiny new padlock that we'd grabbed at the store. He put it on and told them in no uncertain terms that they were not allowed to trespass on our property for any reason again. If they were unhappy with the accommodations or lack thereof, they were free to leave. A few days later, early in the morning, as my father was getting ready to leave for work, we heard pounding on the door again. I alerted him as he was putting on his gun holster for work and said it was Entitled Man and his wife again. He clipped his badge onto his belt where it would be visible and went to the door. Being the pest that I was, I opened the door and raspberried them as they screamed and yelled about how we were horrible people, we ruined their vacation, and that next year we better get our act together or there would be heck to pay. At this point, I stepped aside so my father could step out with his service weapon and badge visible. They both suddenly got quiet. Dad, how did you get into my yard with a locked gate? They stare in silence. Me, I think they climbed over the gate. It's sagging. They had actually messed up the gate by climbing over it to trespass. Dad, you are trespassing. You are going to leave my property now. To me, get the key. Me, I ran off and grabbed the key to the padlock. I'll put them out. I then ran circles around them, sticking my tongue out and upsetting them even more, but they were too afraid to say much to me. I zipped ahead of them, unlocked the gate, dragged it open, and told them to get out and stay out. I may have stuck my thumbs in my ears and wiggled my fingers while saying, "Nee, nee, 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 nee." I slammed the gate behind them and padlocked the chain again. They angrily left, but not before banging their trailer into our gate and laying on the horn for a couple minutes before they finally left. That weekend, my dad had me help them collect branches, old fencing material. He made sure I didn't touch the barbed wire, but he picked it up, etc., and showed me how to build a barricade, just the way he learned in the army. Did I mention he was also a Vietnam veteran? We built it a few feet from the road so it would block anyone from trying to drive in and park at the fire break. The other side had a power pole in the way so no one could get a vehicle through there. The next summer, we were awoken to angry horn honking, pounding on the door and shouting. I looked out to see a truck with a trailer in our driveway. The gate, which had still been padlocked and chained, was open. Karen was in the passenger seat hitting the horn, and Entitled Man was at the door. I went to get my father and told him the jerks with the trailer were back, and they somehow opened our gate. He got up and went to the door. Before he could even speak, Entitled Man was shouting at him. There's a bunch of branches and stuff piled up near the road. Dad, so? We can't get in to park our trailer. Dad, good.
You won't think that when I burn your house down.
Dad, in a low, quiet tone that used to scare the crap out of people. Are you threatening a law enforcement agent? I don't remember the response, but he followed with, It would be a shame if I had to call my friend Sheriff Turner to have you arrested. By this point, he had developed a very good rapport with the police. Forget you! Dad, that's nice. Now get off my property and don't ever come back, or I will have you arrested. While the conversation was happening, I got some paper and pencil and wrote down the license plate number of the truck and the trailer. No, I don't still have it. I handed it to my father and said we could give that to the police. Entitled man angrily got in his truck, pounded on the horn a few times, and drove off in a huff. We never saw him again. We found he had cut the chain on our fence to get in. Dad called the sheriff and gave him a heads up about what happened and gave out the license plate numbers and description of the vehicles just in case there were any problems in the future. They may or may not have been pulled over and ticketed in just about every town in the county. Never found out who gave them our number. Could have been Joe. Don't know if he had our number. Coming from Cali, where home defense laws were different, we hadn't yet familiarized ourselves with the laws, and this was before the Castle Doctrine laws. But brandishing a weapon was not advised in Cali. Dad saw enough violence in Nam that he didn't want to encourage more. Entitled man was armed, but didn't ever brandish his weapons with us. He was there to hunt and fish. We didn't know who they were friends or kin with, so we didn't want to risk agitating locals and finding out they were best buds or cousins with the sheriff. Dad didn't want to come off as a whiny, complaining Yankee that upset the local law enforcement. Also, he did not have jurisdiction over U.S. citizens. He needed to have cooperation from local cops, and with the good old boys club thing they had going on, he didn't want to run afoul of them and deal with resistance and problems. We didn't want any of the locals coming at us for revenge. We did later get big dogs, but they don't always deter people. It was a complicated situation, and Dad just wanted to de-escalate rather than aggravate and cause problems. If they had started this crap a year later instead of that first year when we were still settling in, he would have called the sheriff right away and some large deputies would have come down and told them to get lost. Extra cheese? You got it. I work at a fairly popular buffet-style pizza place where you can request any order with any toppings and we'll put it on the line. This means I, as the cook, am very used to getting strange, gross, and annoying pizza requests. This was different though. We have multiple specialty sauces that we can use for the pizzas, including an Alfredo one. Now, for those of you who don't know, cheese sauce plus normal cheese plus oven equals soup. I was always told to be very careful with how much cheese I add to an Alfredo pizza, because even a little too much can make it basically inedible. This particular day, I had a customer come in requesting an Alfredo pizza with extra cheese. No problem. I add more than normal, but still not enough to make it soupy, and throw it in the oven. It goes up on the line, and without even taking a slice, the customer tells me there isn't enough cheese. I try explaining that adding any more would make it so soggy you can't even lift a slice, but they were having none of it, and very angrily demanded I make them a new one. And do it right this time. I don't have all day. It's pizza, bro. Chill. We were fairly slow at this point, and I had done all the to-go orders I needed to complete, so cue malicious compliance. I told our server that there would be a special pizza coming out, and I wanted to deliver it myself. She's confused, but basically just says do what you want. I go to my station, put on the sauce, and absolutely destroy the thing with cheese. It looked like a snowy mountain peak. Beautiful, terrifying, and probably very detrimental to our food sales costs. Oh well. The pizza comes out, and it's more liquid than solid, but I managed to cut and plate it with minimal losses. I bring the entire tray to his table and set it down, a huge smile on my face. Mr. Huffy still looks angry and exclaims the usual, "Finally!" and I walk behind the counter to watch. It was even better than I'd hoped. As soon as he picked up the slice, one-handed, a rookie mistake, an avalanche of hot cheese sauce spilled down the front of his shirt. He starts yelling and manages to smack his hand down on the tray, flipping it and further covering himself in chunky hot nastiness. My server and I are laughing so hard we need to go into the walk-in so other customers won't hear us. He never came in again. And yes, I cleaned the table afterwards. Our janitor was a sweet old man, and it wouldn't have been fair to leave it for him.
Am I the jerk for removing the wood my neighbor keeps putting on my fence? We recently got a dog. He's a friendly dog and very well trained. He used to be a competition dog, but got retired due to an injury that caused cosmetic damage to his face. Now, along with his size and scarring, he can look pretty intimidating. Now, to keep him satisfied and happy, we got a whole doggy gym set up so he could continue doing his various agility activities, including some jump bars. One of the first times I was out in the back having him do some agility practice, my neighbor's son was out in their backyard. He came over to my fence to watch, and we got to talking about him. He was impressed when my dog easily made it over the higher jumps. I made a quick comment about how it was nothing to him, and he could probably jump over the fence if he wanted to. Well, he told his sister, who was apparently already scared of my dog due to his appearance and a bad experience with another dog. She's been refusing to come out into their backyard to play because of my dog. We tried introducing my dog to her so she could see that he was actually really friendly and well trained, so he wouldn't just jump over and attack her. She was not having it though. So my neighbor has been putting up tarps and tried to attach plywood with some straps to the top of my fence so she would be less scared and won't see my dog. Now, my fence, which is solely owned by me and just on my property, is a beautiful decorative wrought iron fence that came with our Victorian-style house, and all the stuff he put on it looks tacky as heck. So I took it all down and put the stuff in a neat pile next to his house. He put it all back up while I was gone. While I was taking it down again, he came home, so I went over to talk to him about it. He got angry at me for taking it down and said he had to do it to protect his daughter and to keep her feeling safe. He said if I wanted to look nice, I should build a taller fence that wasn't see-through since I was the one that decided to get the dog. I told him I wasn't replacing the fence and that he could build his own fence on his property if he wanted to, but to keep stuff off mine. Then he said I was a jerk for thinking he should pay for another expense when I was the one that got the dog and he had recently been laid off, which is something I knew because we talked about it before. Also because it would be really easy for me to build one or put in some cheap hedges since my yard is just grass and his is all paved over. I don't want hedges taking up space in my yard or a different fence though.
Entitled aunt tries to force me to pay for her son's college, ends up regretting it. I, 25 female, and my sister, 24 female, lost our parents in an accident caused by a drunk driver 10 months ago. Our parents left everything to my sister, Taylor, and I with a 50-50 split, with the stipulation we would not have control over my parents' assets until we are 25. Until then, our Aunt Sue, 53 female, and Uncle Rob, 63 male, would have the controlling power of our parents' assets. Sorry, my mind went blank and I can't think of what that person is called. They're my mom's brother and sister. With me being 25, I have full control of my half of my parents' assets. However, my sister does not. If she wants to spend any money, she has to get approval from Sue and Rob. It took about 8 months for us to get our inheritance and finally have all of my parents' assets figured out. My Uncle Rob wanted all of us to go out as a family and celebrate my parents one last time now that their ashes are spread and all of the legal and paperwork stuff is finished with. We all go to dinner. My mom's whole side of the family, about 20 of us. All throughout dinner, Aunt Sue would make comments about how much money Taylor and I have at such a young age. I asked her multiple times to stop. She would apologize and change the topic. When dessert finally comes, Aunt Sue asks,
Well, your parents were paying for Alex,
20 male, her son,
college. How should we get that figured out for the fall semester?
Taylor and I knew my parents were paying for his school. We also knew Alex has almost failed out twice and has only completed 1 full year of classes despite him being in college for 3 years. Taylor and I both knew my parents were going to stop paying for Alex's college since he wasn't taking it seriously, and they gave him multiple warnings. Taylor looks at Sue and says, "Can we please talk about this later? This really isn't the time." Aunt Sue got mad and said,
You both graduated college, and you both have great jobs and make enough to support yourselves without the money your parents left for you.
She said some other stuff, but to summarize, she thinks we need to learn how to be less selfish and share our inheritance with the rest of the family, and that we have to pay for Alex's college, since that is what my parents said they would do. At this point, I blew up. I told my aunt that she needs to stop asking about the money. It isn't about money our parents gave us. It's the money we inherited because they're no longer here. I would trade all the money in the world to just have 1 more year with them, let alone the 20+ years they should have had. I told her that she was being a greedy jerk and that I would do everything in my power to make sure that she never gets a penny from the inheritance and that neither Taylor nor I would be paying for Alex's college moving forward. I leave the table, pay for the whole dinner, and leave the restaurant. Taylor follows me out and we leave. Neither one of us has reached out to Sue or the rest of the family, and they have not reached out to us. Force the student to do your job for you? Enjoy losing your whole career. I work in a healthcare facility with different disciplines, and we have the main clinicians and assistants as well that do treatments. For the longest time before lockdown, clinicians would take students from schools because they need to have some hand-on experience before they graduate and get to take their state exams. The players of this are, we've got me, OP. We've got Dory, the clinician teacher. We've got Hannah, the student. We've got Casey, another clinician. And we've got Katie, my regional manager. So I'm the supervisor of the health clinic, and I'm in charge of all clinicians. Even though they're fairly independent, they have to report to me, and I in turn report for the whole clinic. This starts with Dory. She has a lot of friends in one of the prominent universities here. She's very well connected with them. She graduated from there, is involved with their activities, and just active in the school in general. I've known Dory for years and have worked with her before, but she was never directly under my management because her home clinic was another location she would just help out. I would hear things about her, the way she treated the assistants that worked under her, a rudeness towards other clinicians, and some sketchy stuff about basically fraud of billing for services not rendered. This is a big no in healthcare, but it happens more than you think. Anyway, I had no proof of this, and all the patients at my clinic had not voiced any complaints. Anyway, Dory had started taking students in, and she was moved at my clinic. When she came here, she was still helping at another clinic not too far away. Dory accepted a student from her university to follow her and learn from her and slowly integrate into clinical treatment. This is where Hannah enters into the picture. Very shy girl, did everything you asked of her, but because she was shy and also being a new student, she's unsure if the treatment she is administering is the appropriate one. That's why you have people like Dory to be next to you and counsel and guide you. After the first few weeks, I started noticing Hannah would be in the clinic and would be doing treatments without Dory being around for a few hours. This isn't allowed because the instructor should always be around at all times to supervise their students. After a few times of noticing this, I brought Dory and Hannah into my office and said this cannot be happening and it's not allowed. If it happens again, I would have to report it, and this was not something I wanted to do. If I did report it, the student would lose their clinical placement and would have to wait 6 months until the next placement, which pushes back the graduating date. A few weeks go by, and things had been fairly normal. The student would be in the clinic sooner, but would not be performing treatment. She would, however, shadow other clinicians, but Dory was still coming in later than usual. One day, as I'm walking by Hannah, I see that she's on the billing menu. In order to be on that screen, you would have to be clocked in, otherwise the system won't allow you to do it. I call her to my office again, and I sternly tell her that I had specifically said she couldn't treat patients, and she doesn't have a clock-in username and password. Hannah proceeded to tell me that Dory had told her to clock in for her and start billing patients before services were rendered. Continues to state this had been going on for the whole time she'd been a student. Now, I don't see the billing until the next day, but I don't have a clock of when the billing was submitted. I tell Hannah that this was strictly not allowed, but I need more information before I make a decision. I call Casey, the other clinician, into my office, and she proceeds to tell me that Hannah goes home crying and bawling every single night due to Dory threatening to fail her as a student if she didn't do all of these things for her. Dory had used her leverage in her school to strong-arm Hannah into doing all of her work while she wasn't even there. I asked Hannah if this was true, and she said yes, it was. Hannah then goes on to tell me that after the first meeting with Dory, Hannah, and myself on what they shouldn't be doing, Dory brought Hannah to the side and told her,
"He's cool. He knows what's really going on, but he has to say that as a manager, so keep doing it."
At this point, I asked the student if any of her evaluation or letters of progress had been submitted to her school, so they know she's been making progress. Hannah says that Dory has never submitted the necessary paperwork to the school and has gotten away with it because of her connections to the school. So if I fired Dory, she would in turn take revenge on the student and fail her at her clinical. She would be 6 months to a year from being placed into another clinic, meaning she would be either very late or just fail and not be able to graduate. I called Katie and reported everything to her, told her my fear for the student and what she was dealing with every single day, crying and being threatened and retaliated against. Katie was also fearful of this, but also worried the liability this put on the company, also how long it had been going on. So she didn't have an answer on how to handle the situation without it affecting the student. So here was my revenge. I started watching everything Dory did, treatments, time, and complaints, etc. One weekend, Dory had to work without her student on a Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. When I come in on Monday, I notice the patient having been to the hospital since Friday, but she had still been billed for services. I checked the clinician. It was Dory. How was she able to treat a person that wasn't even the clinic and also be able to bill her? So I had my reasons to fire her. I had the evidence I needed, but I still wanted a bit more. I texted Dory and asked if she had seen said patient. She reported yes, she had, but also asked if she had billed less than what she should have because she would have been able to bill more if I wanted. I told her that wasn't necessary and there was no way to bill more due to the patient being in the hospital the whole weekend she had billed. She knew from that moment what was going to happen. The next day, myself and Katie waited for Dory and she was fired on the spot just for the fraud. The student thing never came up in conversation and she had no idea we had known for a while. I had another clinician write up a whole letter on what the student was doing and that she was a good clinician and had completed the necessary work to be able to graduate. Dory was unable to get any more work done after that because the incident had been reported to the government and they had that on her license wherever she went. Her new employers would look at the license and not want to hire someone with that on their record. Last I heard, she was working at an Amazon warehouse as a manager. From a doctorate degree to a warehouse manager, after many years, I'm sure, of fraud. The best part is that student has graduated and gotten her degree and is working in the field. She's a great clinician, has done great work in her field, and I still keep in contact with her. She's very thankful for being pulled out of that situation. Am I the jerk for canceling my daughter's horse riding camp application after she canceled her brother's job application? I'll try to summarize this entire conflict that happened over a month, barely 2 months now. I have 2 kids, Mia, who's 16, and Ricky, who's 18. Mia used to work at the local coffee shop for 2 months, but didn't commit nor respect time and had no work ethic. As a result, she got fired, but she didn't accept it and kept begging her former boss to get her job back, but couldn't. She was so heartbroken over losing her first job this way, and besides, the coffee shop is, or used to be, her favorite place. Also, she was saving up to attend a horse riding camp, but didn't have enough money, so I promised to pay for her enrollment and application. A week after she got fired, she learned that her brother, Ricky, was trying to get her previous job. She went mad and kept begging me not to let Ricky apply to work at the coffee shop because her friends will find out and say the manager picked her brother over her. I thought that was overdramatic of her, and plus, Ricky is the one to decide which place to apply at, so I told her to leave it alone. Mia refused, saying if I don't do something, she will. Days later, Ricky told me and his mom that someone logged into his email and canceled his job application at the coffee shop. He said he spoke with the manager and found out someone sent him a rude email pretending to be Ricky, saying he was canceling his job application and he no longer was interested in working at the shop, adding insults to the coffee shop and the staff and the manager himself, etc. The manager kicked Ricky out and even banned him from the shop completely. I immediately shouted for Mia to come downstairs, and after pressuring her, she admitted sending the rude email to the coffee shop manager to make Ricky lose the job opportunity. She defended herself, saying she felt awful that Ricky was planning to take her place at the shop and couldn't let it happen. I was mad. I told her I'm automatically canceling her horse riding camp application and taking the money I paid back. She tried to argue and cried, saying I promised and I knew how much this meant to her, but I said that was automatic response to what she did, point blank period. No buts or ifs, besides the fact she has to go apologize to Ricky. My wife called me a jerk for not seeing where Mia was coming from and said my love for her was conditional since I promised to pay for the camp but took the money back as soon as she upset me. Mia hasn't been talking to me for 2 months except for basic words like good night, goodbye, etc. And my wife says Mia has every right to not talk to me ever again if she wanted. I wonder if I went too far or whether Mia deserved her punishment. I won't even get started on how awful Ricky felt/is feeling because he's developed trust issues ever since. Edit. A lot of people have been asking whether Mia had talked to the manager or explained what she did to her brother. The answer is no, because she refused, saying this would ruin her reputation and threatened to run away if we forced her to talk to the manager. With this threat and my wife's pressure, I had to back off. But I went to see the manager and we talked things out. But still, Ricky couldn't get the job, unfortunately. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his daughter? Please let us know.
You've got two Karens in that house, and if I was you, I'd get rid of them both.
Am I the jerk for telling my husband I'll use my maiden name for our baby if he misses the birth? So I'm 37 weeks pregnant. Due to several health complications during my pregnancy, I've been told multiple times by multiple doctors that I might have to give birth next week as opposed to 2 weeks from now. Furthermore, that I may actually go into labor this weekend or any time leading up to it. Due to these same health complications, I'm having a C-section and my doctors do not want me laboring. So should I go into labor, they are most likely pushing me through as an emergency C-section. My husband knows all of this. However, he's holding on to the 2% chance that they gave him that the baby could last the 2 weeks. His sister is also pregnant, 4 weeks behind me, and her baby shower is this weekend. It will be over an hour away, and that's without traffic. So weeks ago, I declined for both of us because it didn't seem like a good idea. Well, despite having a long conversation, the shower, 2 days away, has come up again. It turned into a fight, as there are multiple reasons that should I go into labor, it's just a bad situation for him to be that far away. I would list them all, but character limit. Husband wants to go and support his sister and see his family, and says I'm keeping him on a short leash for something that probably isn't going to happen. I told him maybe he's right and nothing happens, but said should he choose to go and choose to take that risk, that should I go into labor, he would most likely miss the birth or be extremely late. And if he makes that choice, then I would give the baby my last name, my maiden name, versus his family name. Husband said I was the jerk for keeping him hostage and I'm always planning for a worst case, and that my thoughts are going to trigger labor more than anything. I said if he chooses to not be a part of this, should I go into labor, why should the baby bear his name when he would fail on his duty as a father? He's been silent and moody since, only talking when absolutely necessary and saying that I'm trying to take everything from him. So, am I the jerk? Edit. Okay, this blew up. I'm trying to get through everything. I hear y'all on the red flags and also on the feedback on my own behavior in this. Update. Had a long doctor's appointment. Husband will not be going to the shower, as not only has it been confirmed I have to deliver next week, but I also have been put on bed rest, so that made the decision for him. He did apologize. We had to have a long conversation. His mother was pressuring a ton of this and guilt-tripping him, primarily about coming down to the shower to see his grandma, who is very old and is constantly a question as to how long she has. But we had a long conversation to which it became clear we need to be low contact with mother-in-law for the time being. She has been starting other drama lately, and this was my breaking point. Am I the jerk for refusing to move my wedding date because my brother's getting married the same day? My family is super Christian, and my brother Ross and I had always been on bad terms. It extended to our adulthood, and I stopped talking to him after he mistreated my fiance Adam, and I uninvited him from our wedding. Adam and I got engaged in 2019. We set a date for our wedding, which is on October 9th. Tim announced his girlfriend was pregnant days ago, and our parents went crazy and demanded they get married next month. Tim agreed under the condition that he choose which day the wedding will be. My parents agreed, even though they're funding the entire thing. I got a call from my uncle saying Tim is getting married on October 9th. I was shocked because this date is my wedding date. I knew he did it deliberately after I uninvited him from my wedding, and I had no intentions on attending his, but I went to see what the deal was. Adam refused to meet me at my parents' house, saying, "You take care of it and get back to me." I found most of my family there, including Tim and his girlfriend. I brought up the date and asked who chose it. Tim's girlfriend lied, saying my parents did, but my dad pointed, saying Tim did. I asked Tim why he chose the date to be the exact same date as my wedding. He made a face and said to him this is a free day since he never planned on attending my wedding, so he thought that date fits. I explained I worked for 2 years to be able to afford inviting and including everyone, and that I chose this date first and want my whole family there. He shrugged, saying it's not his problem if people choose to attend his wedding over mine. I spoke to Mom, and she said I needed to move the date since Tim has to get married fast as his girlfriend is in her 3rd month and they have no time. I explained how much I'll lose since I already paid for the venue, invitations with original dates, and spent the money on menu and flowers. I pointed out that Tim chose this date to spite me and to divide the family, and suggested they change his wedding date since they're having it at their house and paying for everything. Mom said she can since they wanted the wedding in October and Tim and his girlfriend find it fair to choose that day. Tim said I should quit making this a competition of who's getting married first, but I said that wasn't the case and I just wanted all of my family at my wedding. Mom said, if you want the whole family at your wedding, then you'll agree to move the date. You waited 2 years. Can't you wait a little longer? My aunt agreed, but I thought that it's illogical to expect me to move my wedding date and then threaten to not come if I don't. I got into a fight with Tim and I left. My parents said if I want them at my wedding, I should postpone the date and shouldn't blame them for not attending if I stick to my original date. Well, what do you think? Should OP move her wedding date or not? Please let us know.
I think your wedding would be much better off without that family, to be honest. Make sure to post lots of pictures of the wedding to social media, saying how wonderful it was to have all of your family there and all of the people who mattered. Yeah, I'm petty like that.
Am I the jerk for moving in with an unpaying tenant? I'm a 38-year-old landlord of a few single-family rentals. One of the rentals is an old, beaten-up trailer from 1955 that I rented to a single mom and her daughter, around 14 now, a couple of years ago. I purchased the property for the land and was upfront about my intentions with the trailer right from the beginning. I put the bare minimum of work into this trailer, but it's an affordable place to live for now. I charged her $600 a month and made sure she had working electric, water, hot water, heat, etc. The roof was old and leaking, and I have tarred over some leaks the past couple of years a couple of times. I told her when it comes time for a major repair, it would not be cost effective to do it, and I would be removing the trailer and placing a modular home there. Fast forward to last month. She informed me that there was a roof leak and needed more tar. Upon inspection, it is no longer feasible to keep repairing it, and it would need an entire new roof. Well, it's not cost effective to replace the new roof, so I told her that she would need to find other housing. She proceeds to play the eviction ban card and has refused to leave or pay, even the $600. I had my lawyer send her the non-habitable letter and tell her to leave by September 15th. She has not paid September rent and has not mowed the lawn since getting the letter or left. So yesterday I went over there, walked in, and started living. She called the police on me, and when they came, I showed them all of the paperwork and told the officer that she is right. I cannot legally evict her, but I am not evicting her. She is living for free and needs to pay for exclusive use of the house. If she does not pay for exclusivity, then she is my vagrant roommate. The officer sided with me and told her there is nothing he can do to make either of us leave. It's a civil matter unless something physical or threats of violence occur. She's absolutely upset and says that I'm a scumbag jerk, even though I've given her the most affordable housing in the area for almost 3 years now. Lot rent in local mobile home parks is over $500 a month, and you need to pay for the trailer and have neighbors. This is on its own acre plot. I no doubt think I'm in the right here. Someone is living on my property and not paying anything. I have every right to use said property. I'm curious as to what others think about this. I know many landlords who would change the locks while she isn't home and risk the charge. I didn't do it that way. I even told her if she kept paying $600, I would let her stay. But you are renting the land, not the house. I can't keep losing money to fix something for someone else to live. Man refuses to believe I am the office lady and insists I don't work here. It's funny because I am exactly the kind of person who is always mistaken for an employee. I guess I have that walk or whatever it is that people cue off of. I'm an office manager at a church and an atheist because life is funny, and was sitting at my desk doing my thing when a guy from our pest control company comes in. Him. Hi, I'm Freddie with Pest Control Company. I usually talk with, I can't remember her name, an older woman who works in this office. Me. Hi, Freddie. I'm Neon Fuzzball, the office manager. You probably spoke with me, actually. Him. No, it was a few months ago. The office lady was much older. She let me into the kitchen. Me. Well, I can let you into the kitchen. That's no problem. Here's my card. I hand him my office manager business card. Him. Gosh, I just can't seem to remember her name. She works here in the office. Me. Well, I work here in the office, so you'll be stuck with me from now on. Fake Midwestern laugh. Him. I always deal with the office lady. Will she be in today? Me. I'm in charge of the office, so I can take care of whatever. No, I need to talk to the office lady, the one who works here. He points at my desk. Me. There is no other office lady. The only other woman who works here is the minister. Him. But I always talk to the office lady, the older woman. Me. I'm just gonna leave your paperwork here. I'll make sure it gets to the right place. Him. I'm supposed to leave it with staff. Me. They pay me. I'm staff. Him. Oh, they pay volunteers? Me. I'll make sure the paperwork gets to the right place. Is she your mom or something? Is that why you're helping out? Guys, I swear it was me. I've been here for years. It's my office. I'm the only one who works here. I'm the only one who deals with vendors. I am the older woman he talked to. But by the end of this, he honestly had me doubting it. Eventually, he gave up and agreed to give me the paperwork to give to her when she comes in, and went to spray for bugs. I guess I'm officially an old woman, but can pass for a younger version of myself with my mask on. Grandma called the cops on me for refusing to cut the neighbor's yard. My cousin was reminding me of this story and finds it hilarious. I was repressing it so well for 7 years. A little background is, I lived with my grandmother shortly after I graduated college and my mom passed. My grandmother has a tendency for treating anyone living with her like her personal help. She comes to me one morning while I'm on my laptop asking if I'll trim the neighbor's bush. This is so she can see down the street and it's currently blocking her view. I explain multiple times that it's on their property and she needs to talk to them about it. She tells me they won't mind and I ask to get them on the phone to confirm, but she doesn't want to disturb them. One could argue a loud power tool would also do that. We go back and forth for a good bit while she calls me lazy and entitled. After about 30 minutes, she threatens to call the cops, and I wish her the best of luck and go outside to clean my car and breathe, since I'm obviously not getting anything done inside. What got me nervous was she said something along the lines of,
I can tell the police anything, and they'll believe a little old lady over a young punk.
I planned on leaving, but didn't want to look like I was fleeing in case she actually did call them. About 15 minutes later, 2 cop cars show up and I just roll my eyes. 2 officers go immediately inside and one is standing outside talking to me. I calmly explain my side of the story. Apparently, she's inside giving them a tale claiming she's being mistreated by me. I asked the police to explain the accusations and was told she claims I'm mistreating her because I'm quiet and I keep to myself, and that I gave her a small bruise on the back of her arm above the elbow. The cop talking to me laughed it off, saying how that looks like she bumped into something, and this is the first time he's gotten a call for someone being too quiet. What's wrong with me? I think the cop who talked to me first could tell what I was dealing with and remarked how exhausted I looked. He told me they're writing it off and advised I stay somewhere else for a few days. He's dealt with calls like this before, explaining it's people who want to complain and others up in the crosshairs. Ends up, she hasn't even mentioned the bush. Her list of grievances hasn't gotten there yet. The other 2 cops had left, and the one who talked to me gave her a big lecture on how she's only allowed to trim things on her property, and some stories about serious altercations he's dealt with. I'm sure he was giving me ample time to pack, while also probably venting about this non-issue. I walk out with the officer, and she seems to think they're taking me to jail. I guess she thinks you get to take a duffel bag with you. He's making sure I have everything, including my car keys and a safe place to go. He also gives me his card in case I need any help in the future or just need to talk. As I leave, I hear her asking the officer if they'll let me out Monday, as she'll need me to run errands, and he's like, I don't know when he'll return, but you wanted him out, so we're working on that. He's smiling, but giving off a very, lady, that's your problem vibe. I stayed with my girlfriend for at least a week while getting voicemails each day from my grandmother asking if and when I'm coming home. Have you ever had a relative call the cops on you? If so, why? Please let us know.
I'm calling the cops on you if you don't hurry up and get to the next story.
Karen slapped me because I was ignoring her. I am an 18-year-old male, born completely deaf and mute. Also, I am partially blind in my left eye. I live with my sister, who's 28, who had been taking care of me since our parents have passed. Recently, she got married and went on her honeymoon, so I'm on my own for a few weeks. This happened yesterday. Usually, whenever I go out, I am accompanied by my sister due to my disability. But now, since she is on her honeymoon, I had to go out alone. There was a new supermarket opened in our area, and I needed some items, so decided to go there and grab them. My bad for wearing a red-colored shirt almost similar to the employees working there.
but if you look closely, you could see that it was not the uniform. I was at the electronics section looking for some batteries when I see an old man struggling to get some DVDs on the top shelf. Since I'm tall, I helped him. He thanked me, I can do lip reading, and went on his way. Then I began looking for the batteries. That's when I felt someone grab my left wrist. I turned around and a woman in her late 40s slapped me. She was speaking something, but I couldn't follow her lips as she spoke too fast. However, I was able to catch some words like, "You, ignore, job," etc. So I signed to her that I am deaf. Apparently, this was a wrong move because she became more irate towards the signs. Again, she was yelling something, but I couldn't catch anything. So I took my notebook and started writing that I am deaf and mute. Before I could finish, she grabbed my notebook and pen and threw them away. Then she slapped me again and pushed me to the ground. Luckily, by this time, a store employee came to see what the commotion was about. He saw me on the ground and helped me up. Then he asked me what happened. Before I can sign to him, Karen starts to yell at the employee. I don't know what she said as she was not facing me. After she finished, I signed to the employee that I cannot hear or speak. Fortunately, he understood and explained this to the lady, but she is still not convinced. She tries to get me again, but I moved away. Then I wrote and showed the employee to call the cops on her. The employee nodded and called the cops. Karen tried to run away, but the security caught her. The police arrived in about 10 minutes. They first talked to the employee who explained the situation about how Karen had assaulted me because she mistook me for a store employee. One police officer comes and speaks to me. I understood that he wanted my version of events, so I wrote everything down and showed it to the officer. Then they went to check the CCTV footage. Then they came back and asked me if I wanted to press charges. I gladly said yes. Karen was then placed in handcuffs and given a free ride in the back of a police cruiser. The manager then explained to me that Karen thought I worked there, and she became angry that I ignored her. She had been standing on my left side, so obviously I couldn't see her. The store manager then offered me a 50% discount on the products. I texted my sister about the events that happened, and she was livid. Oh, did I mention that my sister is a lawyer? She told me that she herself will be handling the case and would see that Karen would get maximum time. Court date is in around 40 days. I will update about it after court. Edit. I noticed many were asking about masks. She was indeed wearing one, but during that encounter, she had it on under her chin and was not covering the nose or her mouth. Also, lawyers in India can represent their family in court as long as they are not directly involved in it and the judge is not a relative to the lawyer. Karen boss refuses to give me a raise. She really ends up regretting it. This story happened earlier this year, but the real consequences came last week. That's why I've decided to share it now. Context. I, 35 female, live in a big city in Western Europe. After graduating college, I was hired as an office assistant in a big company. Let's call it Happy Place. I did my last internship as a student there, and it went so well that I got hired just a few weeks after getting my master's degree. Over the next 10 years, I worked my way up from an assistant to office manager to head of one of the biggest departments. I was not paid a lot of money, but it was above average and the benefits were great. But the main reason I stayed for so long was the people who worked there. Over the years, I'd made quite a few friends there, and by the year 2020, I was one of the most experienced people working at Happy Place. My colleagues often came to me for advice about how to do this or that, and I also had a great relationship with the big bosses. And the cherry on top was that I had the best boss someone could hope for. Let's call her Maggie. Maggie was 10 years older than me, and she was Wonder Woman. She is nice, professional, cool, helpful, and has a heart of gold. I've worked with her during my whole time at Happy Place, and the last 4 years she was my direct supervisor. I loved her. Then in 2020, a few things happened almost at the same time, and over the course of 6 months, Happy Place turned into Sad Place. First, the company hired a new HR lady, Karen. She was the worst. She treated everyone below her level of responsibilities, which is pretty much 99% of the staff, as if they were lesser people, talked down to everyone, and constantly made changes in the HR policies. She implemented quite a few new rules, which led to us losing some of the benefits that we liked, like free lunches, paid time off to go to the doctor's office during office hours, etc. But the CEO of the company trusted her for some reason,
and soon he stopped taking meetings with the staff, making Karen the only person who could make decisions regarding the staff, which meant that no one could actually complain about her, and we slowly started feeling helpless. Second, Maggie was promoted to a different field, the one she actually wanted to work in, so I cannot be mad at her for leaving. And she got replaced by Susan as my new supervisor. Susan was cool, but she was my age and with less experience, which did not make much sense. So even though on paper she was the one in charge, I was the one constantly explaining to her how things worked and what needed to be done while she took the credit. And lastly, lockdown. Our line of work was highly impacted, so the whole year of 2020, I was working under an enormous amount of stress, taking almost no vacation time, doing my job and some of Susan's job, as at some point she went on medical leave, and some of my coworkers' jobs, as some colleagues cracked under the tension and quit, but no one got hired to replace them. But despite all of the hard work, I did not receive any lockdown-related bonus, which was weird since some of my coworkers let it slip that they got a 1,000 euro bonus for achievements during lockdown. The compliance. So, given all the events of 2020, in January of 2021, I decided that enough was enough. When it was time for my annual review, I decided that I would negotiate better conditions for myself, because as much as I loved my job and the people I worked for, I couldn't keep working so much for so little pay. As Susan was still on medical leave, Karen was the only one who did my annual review, despite the fact that I've only met her a few times and we've never directly worked together. In preparation for the meeting, I've made a list of the things I've been putting up with and a list of reasons why I should get a slight pay bump. I was asking for a 15% pay increase, but was happy to accept a 10. It was not about the money, it was about knowing that there was at least a chance that management valued me as an employee and that I was not just some sucker who did so much for not even a thank you. After making my case to Karen and carefully explaining to her what my job was and what I was actually doing, I asked her the dreaded question. She looked at me, smiled, and said,
OP, I appreciate everything you've been doing for the company, and we value you as an employee, but your responsibilities and your abilities are not worth that much.
I was speechless. I admit, I was so angry and hurt that I felt tears coming up to my eyes. But I took a deep breath, calmed myself down, and said, "Thank you for your input, Karen, but I cannot keep working in these conditions. It's not worth it." Karen rolled her eyes and replied,
"Then you can quit, but I will be sorry to see you go."
And quit I did. You see, there were two things Karen did not know. First, as explained, I was a highly valued employee with a great reputation and over 10 years of experience in the field. And our field reputation is important, and for the last 2 years, I've been receiving job offers from competitors. I always refused because I loved working for Happy Place, but since the events of 2020, I started taking interviews, checking what else was out there. And just before my meeting with Karen, I did an interview with Cool Company, who offered me a 60% raise to do the same job as I did for Happy Place. Second, remember how I said I took almost no vacation days in 2020? So by January of 2021, I had over 2 months of paid leave available. I checked with the HR, not Karen, the week before my annual review, and they confirmed to me in writing that I was free to take my vacation days whenever I wanted. So I did exactly what Karen told me to. I quit. I put in my 2 months notice and took my 2 months vacation, which meant that I came to work for only 1 day to clean out my office and say goodbye before leaving for good. I felt bad because I left so many of my colleagues in a really bad position since they now had to do my job, but they all assured me that they understood and that they would have done the same thing. After my 2-month paid vacation, I started working at Cool Company, and I've been here ever since. The aftermath. I kept in touch with a few friends from Happy Place, and they regularly informed me of what was going on over there. It seems that me quitting was the push that many of my coworkers needed to also make the final leap and quit. As I said, the conditions went from great to bad since Karen took office. Also, the fact that I quit so abruptly got the attention of the CEO, as we had a good relationship. He asked Maggie, who was aware of the whole story with Karen, about it, and she told him the truth. About me not getting the lockdown bonus, about Karen speaking down to staff members, about her telling me to quit if I wanted to. The CEO finally opened his eyes and launched an investigation into Karen's actions. He personally did interviews with some staff members and heard stories about her from people from many different departments. He also investigated the lockdown bonus story, and it turns out she only gave the lockdown bonus to her friends from different departments and a very generous one to herself. Plus, since I've quit, no one was actually able to do my job, and the fact that Karen was responsible for me leaving made her responsible for the consequences. So after reviewing everything, the CEO decided to terminate Karen's contract. Rumor has it, the whole staff of Happy Place celebrated this joyous occasion. The cherry on top. Last week, my boss at Cool Company walked into my office and said, "OP, you know Jen from HR is retiring soon, right? We did interviews to replace her, and one of the candidates is Karen. She seems competent, but asks for quite a lot of money. You and her worked together, right? What's she like? Do you think she deserves to be paid more than we initially offered?" I said, "Boss, you got a few minutes?" "Great. Let me tell you a story." After hearing my very honest opinion of Karen, Boss Man laughed and said, "Okay, good to know. I think we will tell her that she's not the right fit for us. Thanks, OP." As soon as Boss Man left my office, I sent an email to my friend Lori from HR, who was in charge of replying to candidates. I also told her the story and asked her to keep me informed if there is any development with the whole Karen applies to Cool Company thing. A few hours later, I get an email from Lori. Turns out, she copied me to her official reply to Karen. It read, "Dear Karen, thank you for your interest in working for Cool Company. After careful consideration, we regret to inform you that in our opinion, your responsibilities and your abilities are not worth that much." I brought Lori a big chocolate cookie the next day. Thank you all for reading, have a great day, and remember, don't let Karens ruin your sense of self-worth. Sell your property to someone who isn't my daughter? I'll get you expelled. When I was in university, I bought myself a longboard to get around campus. A lot of the students were doing it, and I thought it would be easy. Well, after a few falls, I changed my mind and switched to a bike. I figured that if I wasn't going to be using it, I might as well sell it to someone who would. I posted it on Facebook Marketplace at a good price and had a few people interested right away. The first person to contact me was happy to meet my price and available to meet right away. I updated the listing to pending offer and drove out to meet the buyer. She likes the board and purchased it with no bargaining. When I got home, I had a message from a high school girl asking if it was still available. Me, "Sorry, no, someone just bought it." Her,
No, you have to go get it back. I love this longboard. It's perfect for me.
Me, "Sorry, it's sold. I'm no longer the owner. I don't have it." Her,
Ask for it back. Tell the buyer that you changed your mind. Offer $20 for their trouble, and I'll up the price.
I wanted to end the argument, so I said I'd follow up with the new owner and ask them if they would be interested in selling it to the high schooler a little more. I contacted the buyer to let her know that someone was inquiring about the longboard and was willing to pay a little more. I asked her if she'd like the contact details in case she wanted to make an easy $20. The new owner thought about it and said no, she wasn't interested. Fair enough. So I contacted the high school girl to let her know that I checked with the new owner and they were not interested in selling. Her,
This is your fault. I feel like you just kicked me in the gut. You're a terrible person.
I wasn't in the mood for further chatting and blocked her email. Fast forward 1 week and I had an email from her mother entitled Mom. Karen,
My daughter tells me that you promised to sell her a longboard, but changed your mind and sold it to someone else. That's unacceptable.
Me, Nope, your daughter asked me if I could sell her a longboard after I had already sold it to someone else. The posting noted that it was pending pickup when your daughter reached out to me. Sorry for the confusion.
No, you will get my daughter that longboard. You're going to compensate her for the pain and suffering you've caused. You'll be giving the longboard to my daughter for free.
Me, Look, lady, I don't own the longboard anymore. Someone else bought it.
Then go get it. I know the dean of the university. If you don't deliver the longboard to me by the end of today, I'll get you expelled. Do you really want to lose your chance at having a good job over a longboard? You'll do the right thing, or else.
I stopped listening because that was absolutely ridiculous. I didn't block the email though, and the next evening I had another treat.
I went to complain to the dean. Your time at the university is limited. While I was there, my daughter saw someone riding her longboard today. How dare you sell it? You'll be sending us $500 for a brand new one. After all, you won't be needing your money for tuition next semester. This is my address. You better deliver that money or else. What is your phone number? Text me at this number when you're coming.
Well, that night I went for a little ride and drove by their home. I took a photo of the 2015 BMW 228i convertible in their driveway and posted it on Craigslist for $500. I asked that interested buyers text Entitled Mom's number and promptly blocked her email. My friend texted a few days later to ask about the car. Apparently, Entitled Mom is responding to everyone thinking that it's me and demanding that they come up with the $500 and a new longboard for her little angel, but that she's not selling the car. The dean never called me to his office. I graduated without issue. Update. Entitled sister wants me to support her and the baby she's about to have. Quick summary. I have two half-sisters, Mary and Karen. Karen used to live with me rent-free and decided to offer me up to her creepy boyfriend like a side dish. I kicked her out and she went to live with him. She got pregnant, he threw her to the curb, and now she wants me to take care of her and the baby she's about to have. Now to today. Mary called me this morning to have brunch and discuss things related to Karen. She told me she understood I don't want to be part of the mix, but she really wanted it to be discussed, and after, I can just walk out. I know Mary, and I know she's just trying to leave everything in order before she leaves the state. She's the peacekeeper of my siblings. I agreed on the condition that there was no way Karen would come home with me. Mary just said, if she tries to follow you, I'll drag her out myself. So I dressed up and off I went to brunch with my sisters. I'll skip the pleasantries and dumb, friendly family look Karen attempted. Once we were done eating and just having coffee, Mary set all the cards on the table. She explained she couldn't take Karen with her out of state because she's getting married to her longtime girlfriend and they can only afford a one-bedroom in her new city. She also said Karen was insane if she thought Mary would allow her to live with me, even if she had the power to make me take Karen back in. That Karen was lucky she even let her stay with her for these past few days. She told her the only reason we were doing this was because her mother had begged her to at least put Karen somewhere safe or find a solution for the pregnancy. So she turned to me and asked me, as the most stable economically, if there was anything I would be willing to help with. I might be a jerk for this, feel free to roast me, but I basically said I would only give money for 3 things. 1. Termination and a hotel room. 2. A ticket back to home country so she can live with her mother or aunt and get free health care. 3. A ticket to our eldest brother's home country so she can live with him because I know he will take her in. I also said she had the option to put the baby up for adoption, but I would not be offering her a place to stay or a way to get medical care out of my pocket. I gave her some links to nonprofits she could use. Karen started crying, saying I was trying to take away her baby and being a bad sister, that a good sister would open up her home and help care for her baby, that I never deserved to have the money I have. Most of my money is from inheritance on my mother's side of the family, so not sure how she would have gotten anything. That I was spoiled by my mother because she had money. We did, because after our father left my mother and I with nothing, she made a company from scratch. She kept babbling and making a scene. Then she said something that actually hurt me.
You are just mad because you will never get pregnant.
Yes, I happen to be infertile. No, I can't get treatment for it. It is what it is. I've already accepted it, but it still hurts. Mary knew this was a low blow for me and basically told Karen, one more stupid word like that and she'll be sleeping on the streets tonight. I didn't cry or anything, just stared. Karen stopped her crying and muttering and seemed to get an idea. She looked at me straight and told me to adopt her baby. I laughed at that. I told her she was insane if she thought I would adopt her baby. I don't want her in my life, let alone her ex. I don't blame the baby, but I have absolutely no intentions to be part of that child's life. I was about to go off on Karen just for even thinking I would consider that as an option, but Mary stopped me in time. She simply said to Karen, "You have the option she gave you. Termination or go back to home country. Either way, you can't stay here. You are not legal and your immigration status affects us if you were to live with us. I could lose my job and OP could lose her resident status. You have until next Friday to choose. If none of these options work, you will have to find your own solution without us." I don't want you anywhere near my little sister. You put her at risk of being hurt. You're lucky I have an empty room for one more week for you to crash in, but after, I don't want to see you in person. We can keep in touch by Facebook or phone. You've lost the right to spend time in person with either of us." I just stared at Mary. She's very quiet and normally the most reserved of us, so this was not expected. Mary paid, didn't even wait for the change, and left Karen with enough to get a taxi home. Mary grabbed me by the arm and took me out. I didn't know how much I needed someone to just protect me for a change, but I did cry a little on the way out from just pure relief I had one older sister that still looked out for me. We decided to go for ice cream after, like we did as kids when bad things happened, and discussed our plans to spend holidays and vacations together. Mary's girlfriend also joined us for ice cream, and the whole time she just made jokes about how sad she's going to be without her moving table. She's much taller than me, and it's a running gag with us. Nothing too dramatic, thankfully. Mary and her girlfriend are going to come later for dinner with me. Depending how this mess ends, I'll try to update, but at this point, I think it's pretty much done. Not sure if Karen will take any of the options we gave her or just do her own thing. Regardless, I have no intentions of putting my money for anything but what I said I would. And yes, Mary is my hero, if anyone is curious. Karen, the building manager, probably regrets her wording. I live in a housing cooperative. I have no idea if there is something equivalent in other countries, but I live in Norway. It's essentially where you own your own apartment, but the cooperative owns the buildings and the land. If you're going to make changes to the building, you'll have to apply for a permit. Otherwise, it's generally do as you please, as long as you don't bother your neighbors. Anyways, I put a small greenhouse on my private patio, as many others had done, but not this exact type. This was an aluminum construction, not a frame with a loose plastic cover kind. The building manager, who is best described as a triple Karen, threw a fit. She actually watched me spending 3 days assembling the greenhouse. Then the next day, she called me and threw a fit. Not because I put up a greenhouse, but because I had used screws to fasten it to the patio for stability. Apparently, I was not allowed to use screws on the floorboards, as this was considered changes to the building in her mind. And I had destroyed the floorboards. Never mind the whole patio was built with, wait for it, screws through the floorboards. Screws in the walls were okay, she had told me, in response to me asking why she had put up shelves on her patio herself, but not the floorboards. Apparently, the difference was monumental, and everyone should know this intuitively. Nowhere, literally nowhere, does it say fastening things to the floorboards or putting screws in the floorboards is not allowed. Not in my house rules, my contract, or in the National Housing Cooperatives law. But she was furious I had done this. I took a deep breath, and as I am quite creative, I immediately thought of a workaround. I'll just put it on wheels then. I made a big number of saying that fastening was essential because otherwise the greenhouse would not be stable enough to withstand wind. She said she understood this, but I had now ruined the co-op's property, and this was a really serious matter. She told me to send an application for a permit to see if she could find a way to get approval from the board, but she could not guarantee I could keep it, she said with the fakest of sympathies. So I sent the application with photos saying what I had done and that I didn't think I had to apply to do this, as I never considered putting in a prefabricated greenhouse would be seen as changes to the building. My application was rejected as I anticipated, but she worded the rejection exactly as I hoped she would. I was not allowed to put in a fastened greenhouse, and she probably thought she'd be clever when she included that I was not allowed to put the greenhouse on my front lawn either. I had worked the "it needs to be fastened to be stable" angle hard, because I hoped she, as the Karen she is, would fall for that reverse psychology. So I proceeded to put the greenhouse on wheels. I made a frame from 2x4s and put 8 small furniture wheels under the frame. I then lifted and screwed the greenhouse onto the frame. I put some boards on the sides just above the ground to stop the draft. Boom! Mobile greenhouse. I can slide it all over the patio. I put some hooks on the walls and used transport straps to secure the whole thing to the wall for stability. The walls were okay to put screws in, remember? So in effect, my greenhouse is now in the exact same location, 4 inches taller, and with ugly blue ribbons tying it to the wall. And the patio now has 22 open screw holes ready to be filled with rainwater in the fall. But oh well, as she's repeatedly told me, it's not my patio. Then I sent an orientation email to the building manager with photos and videos of the sliding greenhouse with the rest of the board members on copy, where I explained in detail what I had done and how every step was in compliance with the rejection email I had received, which I of course included. I said the greenhouse was now to be considered a piece of mobile patio furniture, just like my sofa and wheels were, and that I now considered this subject to be a closed matter. I've not heard a single word from any of them. It's been over a week. I think I got her. I can't imagine she'll find a loophole that lets her legally dictate what patio furniture is allowed and not in the co-op, since the patios are stated to be for every apartment owner's private usage. So when Christmas comes, I'm planning to decorate the greenhouse with lights, make it pretty, because every time Karen steps out of her front door, she has to face my patio where she's looking straight at my greenhouse. The least I can do is make it pretty for her, right? Edit. Thanks for the awards and upvotes. I'm humbly appreciative. Some background. I'm 39, female. I've lived here for 10 years without a single complaint. Karen is the new building manager. Being the Karen she is, which means highly narcissistic, she's using my greenhouse as a way to establish her newfound authority. Make an example. I didn't get her permission, so the greenhouse got to go. It's not about the holes. It was just the only argument she could use to get me to take it down, especially since I had argued hard that it needed to be fastened for stability. And I'm going to take care of the holes. I'll either fix the holes or change the few damaged floorboards, and I told her this on the phone. The damage is no big deal either way. The greenhouse is my therapy. I suffer from PTSD, so keeping my therapy is kind of a big deal to me. Not trying to get sympathy, just saying why I decided to fight her on this. Rude neighbor gets a taste of his own medicine. Me and my wife found this gorgeous house, not yet on the market. Realtor had told us we owned all this nice forested land around it. We were sold. Once we were dealing with the logistics of buying, found out we actually didn't own all of this land and that someone would be building a huge house right next to us. For context, our driveway runs up the side of our house and the side is really like the front. We decide, whatever, can't be that bad. So guy takes 2 years to build the massive house that dwarfs ours and destroys our view. But whatever, we play nice the whole time, letting him use our power and water. We have to get along after all. I bite my tongue over all the inconveniences and him doing me over and living through construction. Kept things on really good terms. When we were talking, this guy would tell me stories of times he had to move because of fights with neighbors, trying to look tough, I guess. I didn't think much of it. It all started one day in the winter. The way my driveway is and how close his house is, he told me I could blow the snow on the small section on his side in between. I was very mindful not to hit the house with the snow and everything. One day out of nowhere, he shows up at my door telling me to keep my snow on my own side. Okay, whatever. Fine, be a jerk. I'm not going to get into it with you. From there, it's him telling me he owns half my driveway because it's on his property and he's going to rip it up and put up a fence and all his other crap. So I try and work with him. He ended up not doing anything but held that over our heads to get his way on everything. Makes me move my shed, and it's like a mini house. Makes me install 180 feet of French drain over a bit of water runoff from my driveway. Meanwhile, he's putting hundreds of gallons of water on my property from his 2 downspouts on my side and doesn't do anything. One day, he decides to put up cameras and points them at our house from multiple angles. This bothers us, but we don't show it. Until a couple months later, he's out there moving them and adjusting angles to get better views of our main hangout areas in my yard driveway where me and my friends and family hang out. So my wife asks him if he can just not point them directly at us. He brushes her off, so I go and have a word with him. This turned into a huge yelling match about all the crap. At this point, it's clear that we both hate each other. The only reason I can figure is that they are super religious, like have 8 kids and just super religious. I'm covered in tattoos, piercings, ride motorcycles, and listen to all sorts of metal music. Though I'm no idiot, I am respectful and keep my noise to a minimum. So I'm assuming he just didn't like my style. Anyway, after the camera fight, I decided I would start blasting my music in my garage with my garage doors open day in and day out, anytime I got the chance. And I played some of the most morbid music to mess with him. On top of that, I got a drone and started flying around his house. Started doing tricks with my bike in my driveway, just being noisy. After a couple months, near Christmas, we see a for sale sign go up. Couple more months down the road, and it's my birthday. They're loading trucks and leaving. Best birthday present I could ask for. Though it ticked me off that he brought a Christmas gift basket and my wife accepted it. I took this as my pro-revenge win. The gift basket thing just shows how crazy he was. He would do crap like that. Gift baskets, waving at us, saying hi, then turn around and do something to start a problem. I'll never understand it, but I'm glad it's over. New neighbors are quiet and never home. Workaholics, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Life is good. Must give 48-hour notice. We've moved several times for my husband's career, so I haven't really had a career of my own, just a series of jobs. Some were great, some were crappy. This happened at one of the crappy places where I worked as a lowly customer service rep. I was late 40s, very dependable, and my manager, Ann, called me her ideal employee. Never had any customer complaints, never tardy, sick once in 3 years, submitted many time and money-saving ideas, always worked late when asked. I worked 32 hours a week, Monday through Thursday, so I was typically the one she asked to work late since everyone else was full-time and no overtime was involved if I worked a few extra hours. I was having migraines and my doctor could see me the next afternoon. I asked Ann if I could leave 2 hours early the next day to go to the doctor. She said work was slow that week and no one else was off, so yes. But since I was giving less than 48 hours notice, it counted as an unexcused and I would get a written warning. I said that I was giving 24 hours notice and we were slow and fully staffed, so I just didn't get why there would be a warning. 4 warnings in 6 months and you were terminated. They didn't care if you had a doctor's excuse. Tardies were a warning. Calling in sick, returning late from lunch, it was not difficult to get 4 in 6 months. Ann said that it was a matter of her having to shift the schedule around. It was inconsiderate to not plan ahead and she just didn't want to set a precedent and be taken advantage of. I went to the appointment, got the warning, and was ticked off about it, but I decided I would be happy to comply with their petty policy in my own malicious way. I didn't have to wait very long. A couple weeks later, Ann came to me an hour before closing and said she had a stack of orders that had come in via Amazon and they needed to be put in that day. The phones had been busy, so the reps who normally entered orders didn't get to them. Could I stay and put them in? I said I really had no other plans, but I'd been thinking about what she'd said about giving 48 hours notice when asking someone to change their schedule, and she was right. It does lead to them taking advantage of you. So I would be willing to stay late 2 days from now, but I can no longer stay late on such short notice.
But I didn't know that I'd need you until just now.
Oh, I totally understand. It's like when I was having migraines and needed to get into the doctor as soon as possible. I think I deserve the same consideration that you deserve. If you give me 48 hours notice, I'm happy to stay. She was speechless. She had to pay someone else overtime to stay. A couple days later, she thought she'd get back at me when she told me that I could not remain part-time and would have to start working Fridays the following week. I calmly told her that the following Thursday would be my last day then. By that afternoon, she changed her mind and I could stay on my current schedule.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.